So, thank you to the organizers for this prayer. Today we have Nilesh Vikamsesar, past president of ICI, with us as a keynote speaker on today's subject, that is NFRA orders, key learnings, and what are the way forward for the chartered accountant firms. And when I say that, what are the way forward for the chartered accountant firm, that means after this establishment of NFRA, there are so many orders which have come, wherein NFRA has observed that the chartered accountant firms are not actually uh, uh, not not complying with the requirement of standards on auditing, requirement of standard on quality control within the firm. So, and you all must be aware of that. Lot of penalties are being levied on the chartered accountant firms. So probably there are two ways of looking at such orders uh, which are being passed by the NFRA. One way is that being regulator, they are very strict. They are just uh, just targeting the chartered accountants. So that is one way of looking at the orders of NFRA. Whereas the other way of looking at NFRA is that NFRA orders is that as a chartered accountant firm, we need to actually strengthen our quality control systems. And if we do this, then ultimately, as a firm, uh, uh, our firm, or for that matter, any other firm, can grow or can go to the next level. So that is the another way of looking at this NFRA order, these NFRA orders. So before Nilesh sir starts with his keynote address, I request our team member Tanisha to please introduce him first, and then I request Nilesh sir to please take the charge.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I feel extremely honored to have been given this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker today, who is a luminary in the world of chartered accountants, a dynamic and eminent personality with an illustrious career spanning decades, who has achieved remarkable milestones that have left an indelible mark on our industry. I'm Tanisha Sharma on behalf of Kalani and Company, Welcoming our guest, Nilesh Vikamse Sir, past president ICAI and the senior partner at KKCN Associates LLP Mumbai. Presently, Sir is the chairperson of the National BFSI Committee as well as the president of West India Council of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. In the past, Sir has served as the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, an elected member of the Central Council for 3 consecutive terms. He has also been the Category A observer on the board of International Federation of Accountants and also member of its Technology Advisory Group. Sir has been the chairman, vice chairman, and member of various committees of ICAI, SEBI, and such as the Insurance and Regulatory Development Authority, SEBI's Qualified Audit Report Committee, where he was also the first chairman to name a few. Along with this, Sri Nilesh Vikamse Sir is the chairman of 361 Mom Limited and Nippon Life India Trustee Limited. He also holds directorship in various other companies as well. Sir is also the ex-chairman of the Federal Bank Limited. Apart from this, Sir has been a speaker at various forums and contributor to the monthly journal of the Chartered Accountants of ICAI, an income tax review of CTC, and the Bombay Chartered Accountants Journal. Talking about his philanthropic endeavors, Sir is also the trustee in various educational trusts in Mumbai. So, it is a great honor for all of us to have you as a guest for this professional discussion on NFRA audits. There could have been no one better who could enlighten us on this topic. Lastly, I would request you to please enlighten us with your words of wisdom. Thank you, sir.
So over to you, Nilesh sir.
Oh, I was on mute. Thanks, Mantriji, and thanks, Tanisha, for the kind introduction. And if you're a student, let me compliment you. Your introduction was very, proper and apt, and you did it very well. So that's up to you. First of all, let me thank Bhupendra Mantriji and other partners of Kalani and Company for requesting me to speak on this topic of NFRA orders, learnings, and way forward for CA firms. This topic is very close to my heart, and I'm very happy to note that this is going to be the speaking session. Mine is a keynote address, but the students who are going to speak on this particular topics, three or four students have been identified who are going to pick up orders, and they are going to pick up various orders of NFRA, the AQRRs, and are going to dissect that and going to take it forward. Only I believe the challenge is this is a post-lunch session, and I hope you don't fall off to sleep. And plus, I think this is post 31st May when you would have finished the listed company audits and all. So that you would want to recoup after the hectic schedule of the listed companies. But be that as it may, I think as chartered accountants, we are aware we need to keep on working hard, and irrespective of the timelines or whatever, we have to be always updated on knowledge. Friends, first I came to know of Kalani and Company somewhere in 1985 when Anand Rathiji was in Mumbai in the Birla Group. And from his mouth, I heard about how good Kalani and Company is, and he had done his training with Kalani and Company. After that, I heard about the firm from Kamlesh Bhai, my elder brother, and who was president of ICI. He was very much in touch with the senior Jawarji, and very much impressed with him, and always speaking very highly about Jawarji. I had the good fortune of being in touch with KL Jawarji, the younger brother of the senior Jawarji, a very pious man, a very academic man, who had the interest of students, always uppermost in his mind. And the way Mantriji is conducting this meetings of the students where students speak, Jawarji used to do it earlier. We shared some committees together in institute, and I was very, very impressed. And just for your information, friends there, at Khimji Korji and Company, or as we call our firm now, KKCN Associates, the abbreviated name, we follow the same practice. We also have regular meetings, and at least I've been associated with for last 4 decades with the firm, but possibly for last maybe 6, 7, 8 decades. We have meetings where articles speak, and there are seniors to sort of guide them. And this, helps the articles in sort of the future career. We have got feedback about these meetings after the articles become CAs. They have gone abroad, they are in India, and they say this speaking session will help them, very much in the careers later. So I would recommend all articles of Kalani and Company who have done it today. Four people are speaking today, but all of you should grab the opportunity and speak on diverse topics, which the partners suggest to you. and take it forward from there. Before I go into the specific topic of the NFRA orders, just to give a backdrop, friends, I think most of you are youngsters, I would say articles and young CAs there, apart from some seniors like me. The whole background on audit quality started somewhere post 2001. In 2001, we had the famous Enron disaster, as we call it, on the accounting side in US, because of which the focus came on audit. Till that time, there was not so much discussion on audit quality, etc. People used to do the audit of companies and forget it, and there was no challenges. The moment the Enron disaster happened, and they had to Enron had to wind up, not only but even Arthur Andersen, one of the topmost firms in those times, they virtually collapsed. They had to also wind up, if I can say so. So that forced the regulators all across the world to focus on audit quality, whether audit is being done right. That was the starting point in US where PCOB came. Around about that time, even in India, the focus came on audit quality. We had the Naresh Chandra committee, where after inputs of ICAI, what was decided, and there was a formation of the peer review board and the financial reporting review board issued in 2002. Thanks to the Naresh Chandra committee and the inputs received from ICAI, they felt that we don't need to have a PCOB-like model, in India, and this model is good enough. So this is where after a year or two, the FRRB and the peer review board started functioning. FRRB used to pick up the financial statements predominantly of listed companies and did a financial report review, and peer review board used to look at the audit practices of the firms, peer-to-peer review. It was a friendly review. It was not referred to the DC, assuming some findings were there. It was not referred to the DC. It was, the whole idea was to improve the quality of audit in the firm. So this was the stand the Indian diaspora took in 2001 post Enron, and we came up with PRB and FRRB. I think in the government bureaucracy and the regulators, they felt this is not good enough. And because of that, in 2006, when the CA Act was amended, they brought up quality review board in the institute. Now, this was a combination of the financial report review as well as the quality review. Again, they used to pick up companies in predominantly listed companies. This started, I think, functional somewhere after a year or two after being there in the Act in 2006, somewhere in 7, 8, or maybe 8, 9. And they used to pick up companies, used to do quality review. I would strongly urge the students over here to pick up the annual report of the quality review board. I'm not sure the 23-24 has come, but 22-23 has come. And for an earlier presentation, I'd done a collation of the quality review board issues, and from 12-13 to 21-22, 32% of the companies that picked up, they said it's generally accepted audit quality. That is about 196 companies, and the cases were closed. 62% of the cases, which was about 373 cases, the QRB felt improvements are required and advisories were issued. Only advisory to the firms to improve. And in 6% of the cases where they felt that significant improvements are required, where the firm quality is very bad, they recommended it to the ICAI to take necessary action. And by that, I mean predominantly disciplinary action. So this was the background of the QRB. On an average, from 2015 to 2021-22, the number of comments per company went down from 7 to almost 3 to 4 in 2018-19. Again, spiked to 7 in 2020-21 and came down to 5 in 2020. Average, comments per company. And what QRB did was bring focus on the auditing standards and the accounting standards. FRRB used to focus on the accounting standards, less on auditing standard and companies and etc. So in 21-22, if I can just pick up that here, they had 18 comments on SQC1. I'm just saying top ones. 14 comments on Standard of Auditing 505. 14 comments on SA 720, which is on the audit report. And there are various others. Some were 9 on some standard. There were 9, sort of observations. 5 across various companies that they had reviewed. Apart from that, on accounting standards, they had issues in AS1, AS9, AS11, AS15, and AS20. Predominantly 5 ASs. And when they looked at Ind AS in the year 21-22. Ind AS had come, somewhere in 16-17. So when they looked at Ind AS, so there were 13 issues in Ind AS 7 and Ind AS 24, 9 issues each in Ind AS 1, Ind AS 12, Ind AS 7, and Ind AS 8. So these were, and balance, I think, four issues in the other across the companies diaspora they had seen. And so this was broadly the QRB which happened. It started in 7-8, and it has been doing a good job. Till 2018, it was looking at listed companies, as I told you. After the setup of NFRA, they are now focusing on private companies, which is not under the scope of NFRA. Friends, despite Enron, despite PCOB, despite Financial Reporting Review Board, Peer Review Board, or for that matter, Quality Review Board, which started functioning, we had the global financial crisis in 2008, where Lehman Brothers folded up. There was a huge crisis in US, and which had a cascading effect on everyone. And near our home, in 2009, we had the famous Satyam scam, which was there, and which also led to the whole change of companies like the Satyam scam. The 2013 Act, which you see, the current Companies Act, as it is said, I can call it, it's all arising out of Satyam. What was observed in Satyam, I think a lot of provisions have been made. Then came 2018, and we had ILFS debacle in India, the DHFL, Dewan Housing, Yes Bank, challenges on the audit or the business failures, if I can say so. And in UK, we had the famous Carillion failure. And in USA, recently, about a year or so back, we saw the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and some other banks. So I think this is where, and Wirecard also was an issue, which was in 2020. There was Germany, where there were failures. I would say business failures. And 2018, we had another, failure of Punjab PNB matter, Nirav Modi matter. So friends, what happened is I was involved in the issue from 2010 as a Central Council member. We gave various sessions on the Companies Act. The NFRA provision under section, I think 132, was never discussed. All of the provision of Companies Act were discussed publicly. It was all arising out of various recommendations, the JJ Irani committee, this committee, that committee. But this particular provision of NFRA was brought in directly in the bill. It was not brought in the first bill of 2009. It was brought with the subsequent amendment of the bill. And finally, we saw the 2013 Act. Now, I was in the council, then I was vice president in 2016-17, president in 17-18. And we in the council then felt, and I'm individually also have felt, that NFRA is not required. The way institute is functioning is good enough. We have got a very good disciplinary mechanism also, and that was, being very effectively administered. But somehow the impression on the disciplinary mechanism as far as the outside world was concerned was not, very good. For whatever reason, I think possibly it's a communication gap, but be that as it may. So we were pushing, and I can tell you very, very honestly, our then Honorable Finance Minister, late Arun Jaitley ji, who was alive, he was very clear. He told me, Nilesh, I believe insurance is functioning well. There's no need of NFRA to be, there. So though it was part of the law, it was not activated. The provision was not activated, the NFRA provision. And same thing happened with other Arjuna Meghwalji. He was Minister of State for Corporate Affairs when I was, council member and later on vice president. He was also very clear, Nilesh, the institute is functioning well. This need not be, there. Similar thing, respected PP Chaudhary ji, who's an honorable member of parliament. He was also Minister of State for Corporate Affairs then. And he also, initially, he was not aware how institute is functioning. Then I made a presentation of about an hour each to him. And he was also convinced that, this is not required. But come 2018, my term finished on, I think, 11th or 12th of February 2018. And I think within few days, the Nirav Modi scam broke out. And believe me, friends, my successor, respected Naveen Gupta ji, or anyone else, nobody got a chance to interact with the government, and NFRA was activated. The bureaucracy is so strong in India. They use this, excuse. And till date, I believe, and I strongly believe, that Nirav Modi matter is something which is completely outside the books of PNB. I don't know how the statutory auditors could be held responsible. Till date, they have not been held, responsible for that. But be that as it may, the bureaucracy got a chance to activate the NFRA, and without the people whom I named earlier, they getting a chance to, sort of revert on that matter. So this was the background where NFRA, though it was part of the Act of 2013, got activated in 2018. The It started somewhere in February, but actually the activation notice started effectively from 1st of October 2018. So that's the background of the NFRA activation. Now, friends, parallelly, just before I get into the order specifically, I think what has happened is I have been part of the institute, and let me tell you what has happened in the disciplinary mechanism also. People are using hindsight wisdom. Hindsight wisdom का मतलब ये है कि आज समझो मैं जब भी ऑडिट कर रहा हूँ या सब काम हो रहा है, the situation at that point of time is not considered. Assuming somebody has failed or done something, and which is anybody, a normal person will come to know only later on, even that is held against the chartered accountants. That's a very unfortunate. Hindsight wisdom ka use. Professional judgment also is being questioned. See, some matters come up and you as a professional have to take a judgment. If it is a bona fide judgment, I think there is a difference between bona fide and mala fide. So if it's a bona fide judgment call and there's a human error which has happened, even then it has been held against. And the whole distinction between mala fide and bona fide has gone. See, there are so many things to comply with. If you look at the financial reports, there could be, I'm seeing the best of the best companies, the largest of the large firms. If you pick up any annual report, you get small 1 or 2 matters which are, maybe say 100% not complied with, maybe 99%, maybe whatever. And they don't have an impact on the true and fair view of the accounts. Even then, the disciplinary committee, the government only said this, there should be no mistake. We are supposed to be 100% perfect. They should know, in my view, which is a very unrealistic, expectation. So there should be a distinction between bona fide errors and mala fide intent or errors. And only mala fide should be punished. Bona fide, if they are not impacting anyone, I think should be sort of just a warning given to be careful and moved ahead. But be that as well, that's what is happening. Parallelly, friends, what has happened is the expectation of the society has gone up, of the government, of the regulators, of the investment, entities who are investing in India, that there should be no audit failure. Business failure bhi hai, that sometimes is, considered to be audit failure. So that is very unfortunate, where so there's a mistake of an auditor, we accept there is a mistake. But assuming it's a business failure, even then, I think it has been considered as an audit failure. Just to give an example, what I mean between business, in my view, Satyam was a fraud, the way we know from the media. But in my view, ILFS could be considered as a business failure. Short-term loans being used for long-term capital adequacy not increased. The shareholders didn't give capital. So on a lot of evergreen, etc. So there's a distinction between somebody doing a fraud or this is, evergreening for the purpose or maybe short-term loans being used for long-term, the asset liability mismatch happening, and then resulting in the failure of a business. So in my view, that could be more called, failure. Yeah, only challenge what has happened in ILFS is, unfortunately, again from the media reports, the auditors ignored certain points raised by the team members, the managers, the partners ignored that, and that was held against the auditors. So I think that's the reason. Therefore, I would not say it's only a business failure. There's an audit failure also, but this could have been a business failure. The auditors had done their job properly, is my belief. It was not a fraud in that typical way we understand a fraud. But that's what I'm saying is the regulatory expectations have increased a lot. Even the SFIO, the Enforcement Directorate, the economic wings are, breathing down the neck of chartered accountants and auditors. So my earnest request to all you young professionals here in your life, when you move out of, after you finish your CA, you go into a further career, please don't get associated with any name, any wrong name, even if you do a good job. But if you associate with somebody whom you know is problematic, you will be in trouble. I'll just give a case and example. Say Vijay Mallya, Kingfisher and United Breweries. So the airlines are doing well, everything else is doing well, but always that name, Vijay Mallya was very glamorous, fanciful. And I know as a matter of fact, the auditor of Kingfisher Airline had qualified it very early, a mid-sized firm in Bangalore, and done the job reasonably well, I would say. Despite that, when the failure happened of Kingfisher Airlines, which again, I believe is more a business failure than a fraud, even the auditor had to face the music and they had to, answer a lot of people. So I believe many times the difference between business failure and the role of the auditor is not, sort of very clear. And I would request you to be very careful when you move out in your career. Please don't get associated with any wrong names. The way today regulators are, the government is, if you get associated, you will have trouble, even if you have done nothing wrong. Friends, just before I get into again NFRA, just few things. Rotation of auditors came in the Companies Act. Friends, I was against rotation of auditors when it came in, before the act came in. But let me be very, candid in admitting that I have changed my view from a governance perspective. Rotation of auditors has been good. Many times the auditors, the erstwhile auditors, were, taking, I would say, accepting risk, which the new auditor is not willing to take a risk of any, I would say, non-compliance or any error or whatever. And that is what has happened is when a new auditor came in, they could not accept the same risk with the erstwhile auditor, saying they resigned, I think, especially in the larger firms. And because of that now, even if you resign as an auditor in a listed company, to give reasons. You cannot just resign saying you have got, say, preoccupation or whatever. You have to give genuine reason. Another thing, friends, technology. We are going to speak a lot about audit quality. So I would recommend you to look at audit, documentation. There is technology available. There's Caseware, there's Inflow, there is CCH iFirm. We never, sort of use Caseware. We tried CCH iFirm. Somehow we were not able to implement it properly. For many years we used it. Some years back we started using Info for audit documentation, and we found that to be very prompt and responsive, and we started using, and people are happy with that Info. For last 3 years we are using Info now. And data analytics, if you're doing any large volume entity, banks, NBFCs and all, think of using IDEA as the analytics software. Huge volumes of data it can process. Or if you're using manufacturing something, we use Data Snipper. There could be others also available. We use Data Snipper for manufacturing other companies. Coming to now NFRA, as I told you, 1st October 18, it was sort of activated, though part of 2013 Act. The function, duties and power of NFRA are to recommend accounting standards and auditing standards, number one, to the government. Number two, monitoring and enforcing compliance with accounting standards. Now, this is not only to the auditors, they can enforce the company also to follow accounting standards, whether it is Ind AS, by and large is Ind AS for the listed companies, except banks are still following the old standards. And monitoring and enforcing compliance with auditing standards. Now, that is for the audit profession, we as chartered accountants. Lastly, it is two more, overseeing the quality of service and suggesting measures for improvement. That is for, again, the practicing units. They've got power for investigation and disciplinary proceeding against CAs and the firms. And this is applicable mainly to listed companies and large unlisted companies. And they have, started coming out with audit quality review reports and financial quality review reports. Friends, the challenge again, what we find is this started with ILFS. So the first audit quality, what they did was ILFS, the auditors of ILFS. So if you can understand, if you're going to take a problematic, so that has become a benchmark now. And that's the reason we are, sort of facing the music. And financial, of course, just like FRR, they're looking financial quality review, which is, sort of okay. Now, coming to the key issues which NFRA has brought out, and I would stand educated by my friends who are going to speak later on each and every, some of the orders which have been done. First and foremost is they have questioned the independence of the audit, especially the large firms. And what they have commented is, if you are a part of a network, and if you're doing an audit, and the network firm is doing any consultancy, your independence is lost. Earlier, what these people used to say, the partnership is different, there is no common ownership, etc., and hence, there's no conflict. But NFRA is very clear, if you're part of a network, independence is law, you can't do consulting if you're doing an audit. So because of this, I'm looking at a lot of changes happening. By and large, what has happened is firms who are doing listed company audits are not rendering any of this, whether it is tax service or whatever. That's the advice I give to myself, to my firm, as well as some other mid-sized firms in Bombay, which we are discussing. We don't do any other advisory work for the companies we audit, which is, just to still private companies we continue, but they're also the institute during my time and later also has represented number of times to Ministry of Corporate Affairs to specify what is management service under Section 144. Unfortunately, of the Companies Act, unfortunately, that is still not, come. Another expectation of the audit quality reporting review is line by line compliance of the auditing standards, friends. What is happening is, what I have been informed is that the review is being done by people who are may not necessarily be chartered accountants. Some people coming from different ministries, they'll be bureaucrats, they'll be coming from different backgrounds of training. So what they have is they've got standard of auditing in front of you, and they want sort of compliance thereof. So it has to be line by line. And typically, what has happened when we talk of how CA firms need to change is the way we are done. We do audit, but I don't know how we focus on compliance with accounting standards also, but very few of us are focusing on compliance with auditing standards. And now that has become very, very essential that we need to, though we know we do audit, but unless you do line by line, there's a possibility of you'll miss out something. And to the extent, I'll tell you, there have been some cases where certain clauses have not been applicable to a company where the auditor said is not applicable. So the NFRA has come back and said, okay, if it is not, where have you written it? This is the para or the line, and this is not applicable to company. I have used my judgment as a not applicable. I don't document it, a not applicable thing. What NFRA wants that you mention that this particular clause or this particular paragraph or a line is not relevant or not applicable to the company you're auditing. So that is the another. So line by line compliance of auditing standards is very essential. If you are not doing it within your firm, please do that. Take use of any software, or even I think Institute has come out with some software. Bombay Chartered Society has come out with some software for compliance with standards of auditing. Very essential. Please start doing it immediately in your listed companies, which you would have finished the audits now. If you're not done line by line, please do the line by line auditing, standard. Then next is the risk assessment by the CA firms on the audit. So here again, one of the comment is the CA firms are not looking at the material misstatement properly. We have to see whether there's any material misstatement in the financial in the reports. So assuming the qualifications are so huge that whatever balance sheet P&L has been there, that could be materially misstated subject to the qualification. I think that needs to be highlighted. Another major point which NFRA has highlighted, and I think again, which we as small and medium firms, Kalani Company is a large medium firm, and KKC also is a medium-sized firm. So we need to sort of gear up is on the engagement quality reviewer. What was happening is earlier there was always a challenge on the manpower. I'm saying some years back, मुश्किल से audit होता था, उसका review नहीं होता था. So any listed company audit you do, there has to be a hot review by engagement quality reviewer, the EQCR as they call it. And NFRA has commented that that has not been inadequate. The mechanism, the policies, they have pointed out some mistake in large firms also, and in the smaller firms it is much larger. In some of the cases, there will be no EQCR. Suppose there's a single proprietor or two partner firm, audit ho gaya, sign ho gaya, but there's no EQCR to review the work which is done. So even if you're a small firm, proprietor also, EQCR, you can appoint an outsider or some other CA as a EQCR, and that has to be done. So I think all of us need to gear up on EQCR. There has not been attaching, has been receiving as much focus as we know. The next point, what NFRA has commented is audit evidence is not enough, and especially on what matters, either on the estimates, the way estimates are there, various estimates are provisioning. In case of financial services, 109 applicable, ECL provisioning, or on the judgments used. Assuming you use a judgment, it has to be documented properly. I'm not talking of only auditing standard. In an accounting also, sometimes based on the interpretation on the Ind AS or the accounting standards, you use a judgment. That also needs a proper documentation. Estimates, various estimates is used, whether it's depreciation, provision for doubtful debts, provision for advances in case for bank, NBFC, etc. Gratuity provision, whatever. So these all are estimates, and on estimates also the audit evidence has to be proper and adequate. Next is I mentioned about compliance with auditing standard, whether documentation is there, and this again has been reported very, very heavily by NFRA that especially in the smaller firms the documentation is not good enough at all, and in the larger firm also they've pinpointed one or two of the things. So documentation of standards of auditing, judgments, estimation, all has to be documented properly. Another comment which I don't want to speak much is that the disclosure has not been given fully, from the accounting side perspective, but which I think can be always be improved upon. Another thing they commented, and I think which we again as not only small firms, mid-size, but even large firms have to change or improve upon is what NFRA said, that communication with TCWG is not enough. Now, what is TCWG? Those charged with governance. Normally, in a listed company, it is the audit committee and the board of directors who are finally, charged with governance. But typically what was happening, and so till about a year or two back, the auditors used to make a presentation to the audit committee, and that was supposed to be communication with the TCWG. So NFRA says this is not enough. You need to have today only, if you see today's newspaper, Economic Times, you should read that. And it has said that it has to be a two-way communication. Even audit, they're putting responsibility not only on the auditors, even on the audit committee, that they should communicate well with the auditors, and auditors also need to communicate well with the audit committee. So not only audit presentation, when you're starting the audit, what is the audit plan has to be informed to them. Take inputs from them, what areas they want us to focus on as auditors, from a risk perspective, if they are feeling that some areas need to be. So that is the starting point. And from there onwards, it has to be a continuous engagement with so just one audit committee presentation is not enough. Another point which NFRA has come down very heavily is on skepticism, that the auditors are not using, and this basically more in the smaller firms, that they are not using professional skepticism adequately. They've spoken on materiality, that the determination of materiality under SA 320 is not done properly. And the most important are audit reports. I think, again, they have come down very heavily. Recent reports, I think our friends will speak later. I will maybe comment a little bit on them. Is in some of the reports have been very heavily qualified. You'll say, qualification ho gaya to theek hai, usme aur kya karna hai aage? So they say no. You cannot say if you're qualified very heavily and then say subject to true and fair view, not good enough. You have to say the heavy qualifications, which is impacting the financial statements, you have to give an adverse opinion that it is not true and fair view. Because of these qualifications or modifications, there is no true and fair view. So you cannot say subject to everything under the sun, it is true and fair view, because if the qualifications are heavy, you'll have to give an adverse opinion, not a qualified opinion. Second, thanks to the pressure of the auditee, many times what happens is if you want to qualify something and they'll request you, aap usko qualification mat karo, you put it in the emphasis of matter. That again, they have come down very heavily. You cannot shift a qualification matter to the emphasis of matter. This thing, emphasis of matter is not a qualification. That distinction we need to very clearly understand. And qualification is a qualification. EOM is different. So you cannot push a qualification EOM and say, "Mera kaam to ho gaya. मैंने तो कहीं पे report में दिखा दिया है. Either qualification में नहीं दिखा तो मैंने EOM में दिखा दिया है." Emphasis of matter. So that is not acceptable. They come down heavily on those matters also. Friends, the penalties have been very, very high. We saw Cafe Coffee Day, 1 crore of penalty on the firm plus 10 lakhs on the partners, managers, etc. Recently, आपने देखा होगा तो Reliance Capital, Reliance Home Finance, and some of the other Reliance Anil Ambani Group companies, very heavy penalties. So I think this is going to be a very heavy impact on all of us. And I'll come to some conclusions arising out of this later on. Friends, on the expectation of NFRA, they want a literal application of standards of auditing, work papers to thoroughly demonstrate audit procedure performed. So it is not, see, अभी जैसे काफी टाइम से आर्ग्यूमेंट होता है, मैं मेरे ऑफिस से बोलता था अपने डॉक्यूमेंट अच्छा करना है, तो the pushback I used to get is, सर हम लोग ऑडिट करें या हम लोग वो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करें. I believe the same must be true in your firm also. But वो बोलते हैं ना, in our case, the only proof is what audit papers we have. So work paper to thoroughly demonstrate audit procedure performed. काफी मैं भी आर्ग्यू करता हूँ, मैं अगर सर्जन होता तो मैं सर्जरी करूँ या मैं उसको डॉक्यूमेंट करूँ, मैं सर्जरी कैसे कर रहा हूँ. बट अपने केस में एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है. वी हैव टू sort of document it very properly. Use of extensive data analytical tools and other procedures for testing fraud risk. Now, एक ही मैं एपिसोड आपको बताऊंगा इसमें क्या हुआ. अजय भूषण पांडे जी, करंट चेयरमैन है, he had a closed door meeting in Bombay in Trident, organized by the CII, Confederation of Indian Industry, and I was invited as a person, past president, staying in Bombay. So the chairman, vice chairman of the CII, spoke very well. They asked him, welcomed him and spoke, and then Mr. Pandey spoke, that he said, why should auditors not be responsible for reporting on frauds? So before me, so PR Ramesh spoke, Mr. Ex-Chairman of Deloitte, Sailesh Haribatti spoke, then my turn came. And I told, sir, with due respect, we are supposed to be skeptical. Reporting on fraud would mean investigation. So there's a difference between skepticism and investigation. And then I told him, sir, again, with due respect, despite knowing fraud in Satyam and say ILFS and DHFL and the Yes Bank and all, the amount of time it has taken the specialized agencies like ED, SFIU and all these people, the CBI, to prove it's a fraud is number of years. And whether Indian industry will have as much time, in case assuming auditors are given the higher responsibility from skepticism to get into investigation and report on fraud, will that be, possible? Whether we have 3-4 years for Indian industry to report on. So that time, of course, the chairman reverted me in some manner. But I believe the point must have registered in his mind. 2-3 months later, he came out with a guidance that auditors are supposed to follow standards of auditing. Whilst following standards of auditing, if they come across some fraud, then they have to report it. So it is not an omnibus responsibility that you have to report on fraud. That's पूरा वही angle से suspicion angle, investigation angle से देखो accounts को. Skepticism से ही देखो, but आप auditing standards apply कर रहे हो और आपको कोई fraud दिख रहा है, so then you report. So that was the, later on after a few months, that thing. So I appreciate the chairman that he has been open to sort of listening other viewpoint also and taking it forward. Another issue which are the expectation is evaluation of underlying basis of accounting estimates in a very detailed and diligent manner. Continuous dialogue with those charged with governance on audit matters, including discussion on significant matters. Proper and structured maintenance of audit evidences. And we need to strengthen our quality controls. So a reiteration of what I had, said earlier. So coming to the current year, there are about 10 cases which the NFRA has sort of reviewed, and I'm surprised that one of the case of Quest Corp is on the tax certification they've commented. And I believe it may be picked up by one of the 4 speakers who are following me. I'm sure they'll speak on it. And for the first time, they picked up a tax certificate because there were possibly some challenges there. And I think 2 cases I want to focus on, 2 or 3 cases, Reliance Capital, Reliance Home Finance and Reliance Commercial Finance. Here what had happened is the joint auditor, which was one of the large firms, had resigned. And unfortunately, the continuing auditor had not considered the reasons of that person's resignation, which said including possible fraud and all. He had not given enough, weightage to the resignation documentation. So all these people have been, actioned against, and some of the matters we discussed of the audit report being qualified, but not adverse report being said. So these are part of these report. I will not. I believe my friends who are going to speak are going to, speak on that. Friends, I would want to conclude, but conclusion also will take a little bit time. I tell you, the way our audit profession has evolved, the reason I'm saying how CA firms need to change is the discussion. My belief is, see, I qualified in 1985. Till 1985, either there were audit firms or tax firms, or even in a firm, people doing audit were specialized and people doing tax were specialized till 1985. Come 1985, there was introduction of tax audit. What happened is this tax audit forced the people who are doing only tax advisory also to do tax audit. And unfortunately, that's my gut feel. Earlier, how the tax practice used to happen, advice, I'm saying those times, कितना GP ratio, last year इतना turnover है, इतना GP है, उसको next year 10% से बढ़ा दो, and उसका return file कर दो. Without any, I would say correlation to the actual, what the business has, achieved, whether it has made more profits, more losses or whatever, but 10% more करके. So that mindset was only tax advisory, and those people became auditors. So they didn't have any audit, this thing. Even people who are doing audit, I'm saying mid-sized firms, there was a joke before this thing happened is that large firms spend 90% time on documentation, 10% of audit. And we as mid-sized firms used to say, we spend 10 to 40% on documentation and 60 to 90% on audit. So both, those were the reality at that point of time. I'm saying just about a few years back before NFRA. And I think that is what is now to change now. Those who are doing listed companies, we need to, sort of change. And I'll speak what we need to do. Friends, in the interim, what has happened, as I told you, rotation has come in 2016, 17. Here, the risk assessment has changed because of the change of firms. And the new firms are not sort of, accepted the same risk as the earlier firms and resigned. Joint audit was introduced in 21-22 by RBI, and which has got a very salutary effect. And this has also brought out audit quality comparison between firms and all. And one more, I think, bugbear area which we have is the bank audit people. Why for bank branch audit and all, but the commentary in the larger spaces, many of the bank audits are not being done properly. So I think that also needs to be sort of focused on. If somebody is doing bank audit, let it be done properly, the branch audit. So now coming to audit of listed companies. Now what we need to do as CA firms, we need to focus on documentation. There's no choice. We cannot complain that we are doing audit. We cannot do document. We have to do it. If need be, use technology, say anywhere, whether it is Caseware, Inflow, or the thing CCH, or I think Issued has come out with a new this thing. Anyone which you, but we need to. You can do it manually also. I'm not saying document, but documentation will make it easier. A one-time effort will help you later on also. But one challenge of documentation, friends, again, I want to point out what this is again unfortunate. Auditing standards allow us to finish the documentation within 60 days after the audit is over. But unfortunately, if the NFRA order speak, in case any document in technology they find, which is post the board meeting day, they think it's an afterthought, and it's exactly not true. I would have reviewed something before the audit, before the board meeting, but I would have documented it later within time allowed by the standards of auditing. But again, this is not being so. I think the ideal situation is you finish the documentation before the board meeting. Of course, what easy to say, but my teams are pushing it. Many of the companies we have done that. Many we are still to do. उसमें गलती हो सकती है. Suppose वो documentation जल्दबाजी में किया और फिर गलती हो गई. But you can amend that and with an audit trail. ये हमने पहले ये document किया, अभी ये document ये changes किए हैं. So there is no, it's not an afterthought as per NFRA. But having said that, in my view, even if you finish it within 1 month, 2 months after it should be good enough. But NFRA is not currently accepting. It's my duty to point you out. Second, we need to be independent. So if you are doing audit of a listed company, please be careful. Please don't do any other advisory work, which may, challenge your independence. Third is compliance with standards of auditing. Friends, again, let me tell you here, हम लोग सबको लगता है audit अच्छा करते हैं. But when you start doing line by line comments, you come to know that you have missed out certain things in your audit also. मैं खुद को कहाँ समझता हूँ, मैं इतने साल का मेरा 38 years का तजुर्बा है, ये है वो, but the moment I do, sort of line by line, compliance, I'll come to know that I need to focus on certain more things which I may have missed out. Next is the absolute essential to have good engagement, EQCR. खाली वो खाना पूर्ति के लिए नहीं, not only for the sake of compliance, or that will be very visible to NFRA. Within, see, Kalani company is big, you can have EQCRs within the firm. वहाँ पे भी हमको भी चैलेंज आ रहा था, हमने जब भी अपॉइंट कर रहा था, इनिशियली देयर विल बी डिफिकल्टीज फ्रॉम टाइम पर्सपेक्टिव, बट थोड़ा पुश करेंगे तो ओवर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम दैट विल सेटल डाउन. Audit evidence हमने बात की, and this is 2-3 times repeating just to hammer on the point on matter of judgment and estimate. Those charged with governance, we need to have more communication, use of more skepticism. Audit opinions cannot be diluted, whether it is adverse opinion or a emphasis of matter. So just all what we discussed earlier, I reiterated. Friends, now my conclusion again, my estimate, currently there are about 2,000 firms doing audit of 7,000 listed companies. कोई एक कर रहा है, कोई दो कर रहा है. My gut feel is if a person is doing, say, audit, tax, GST, the way finance, etc., as a sole proprietor or 2 partner, 3-4 partner, it will be very difficult to cope with the requirements of the NFRA and जो मैंने आपको बताया. So that's the reason I feel, see, many people are now aware the way Kalani company is organizing this particular session on NFRA, and many people are, sort of aware and working on that. But even then, my belief is about 1,500 to 1,800 firms will have to move out of the listed audit space because they will absolutely not be able to comply with the requirements. So just say the idealism required hai NFRA mein, till the time it settles down. Then, friends, I have seen this happening in different sectors. For example, let's take the equity broking sector. Earlier, we had the outcry system, less of technology. As technology came in, as things changed, the regulation changed. The old players moved out. Very few who were able to adapt themselves and change have, remained and doing very well. The likes of JM Financial, Prabhudas Leela, or maybe Motilal Oswal ji was both old as well as the new. But जो एकदम ही old थे जिसने change नहीं किया, वो साफ हो गए मतलब. They are very inconsequential players. So in audit profession also, what is happening is people will change to these new requirements of NFRA, will adapt. हाँ, इससे तकलीफ होगी, pressure आएगा, problem आएगा, EQCR करना है, ये करना है, documentation करना है. But those who do it will be successful. So there'll be a lot of consolidation which will be happening, just because we can't afford these penalties. 1 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore. Fees अपनी 5, 10, 25, 50 lakh है, उसके सामने इतनी बड़ी penalty, I think the profession cannot, sort of afford. So I think what we need to do is, first of all, understand the change that is happening, what we are going to do, accept the change, and then make the change which is required within the firms. And most importantly, by doing all this thing, we need to reprice the auditors. Our audit fees are the lowest in the world in India. So उसका भी repricing होगा. People now understanding, at least the professional organizations and the large, a little bit understanding. Still a long way to go. So वो भी करना पड़ेगा. And these penalties are having a challenge as far as new talent attraction also concerned. But I believe this will throw up huge opportunities also. जो इसको adapt कर पाएगा नए changes को, for them it will be huge opportunity. And there are new NFRA issues and discussion like e-locker. They want the documentation what you do to be filed immediately with NFRA. It's time away. There's a discussion paper. Then they want an annual transparency report. Now, foreign may all these firms are doing listed company audit. They've got a transparency report running into I think 50, 60 pages or more. So that also they have suggested. In my view, that will just documentation. It's not going to make any major difference. In the first view, as far as transparency report, but we'll see it. Finally, in conclusion, friends, there's always a tug of war as an auditor between public interest and client interest. Till now, we have been focusing a lot on client interest, but time has come. जो public interest का जो पल रहा है ये तराजू में उसको बहुत ऊपर लाना पड़ेगा. The way the regulatory changes. So we don't only have to be good in audit, but we have to be very good in documentation also. Thank you very much. I've taken much more time that was allocated to me. Sorry, Mantri ji, but I had to. I hope, and I'm open to any questions which are there.
Yeah, not an issue, sir. Not an issue. In fact, you have enlightened us about first about the Kalanian company and KKG's the relations which we have since 1985, and then with KL Jawar sir, CL Jawar sir, and Kamlesh sir, and then you and
KL Jawar ji.
And we are thankful that you are still maintaining that relationship with this young Bhupendra Mantri and our team also. Though you are very senior to me so far as your overall experience as well as other things are concerned. And then you have explained us about, in fact, you have summarized almost all orders wherein you have stated right from the ethics that how an auditor is required to maintain the independence and then document it, and then line by line compliance of standards on auditing is also required to be done. And then at least you have talked about 15-20 points regarding standards on auditing which are being not complied with various chartered accountant firms and chartered accountants while doing the audit of numerous companies, right from ILFS, Reliance, and other companies too. So, thank you, sir. I would request our speakers to please now take their presentation forward. And as promised by Nilesh sir, he will be also there for another couple of minutes.
No, I'll be there for the first presentation. I'll listen to the first presentation. Yeah.
For first presentations.
And any questions, please let me know.
Feedback from you also on our student speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, or abhi koi
So we
question
have through now.
Okay. Bhupendra, any questions on whatever I spoke, or was that
Yeah, in fact, one questions in my mind, and that is of course not related to this, but that is where the companies are actually, sorry, institute and other regulators, or they are actually now focusing on this multidisciplinary also, wherein they said that there has to be one, even chartered accountants, company secretaries, MBAs, and they can also partner with, and a firm would still call as a chartered accountant firm if more than 50% partners are there. So at the one go, they are saying that they have to maintain the independence and they have to actually do the audit. And the other side, they are saying that you can go for a multidisciplinary firm where to you one client you can provide so many of services. So and again there is section 144 of the Companies Act. So the dilemma is that where actually we are moving. So thoda sa ye sawal alag hai, but what is your
No,
thought on?
Bhupendra ji, my take on that is we can have multidisciplinary funds, and the fact that institution is promoting. But when the listed company space, you can, if you are doing audit, you cannot do, say, tax or the company secretary work or the cost accounting work or the advocate work. We'll need to have the skills, but the skills has to be applied to some other, clients. For example, say if I have got a tax department, I will not do a tax advisory work for the client, but I'll need the tax expertise to review the computation of tax, assuming some orders have come against, तो उसका मतलब whether contingent liability है, provision का दरकार है कि नहीं है, or same thing for indirect taxes. I'm just giving, I may have expertise, but I can't render the tax services. I should not render the tax services, indirect tax services to the same way for secretarial. I may have a secretarial, support in a multidisciplinary partnership. But where I'm an auditor, I should not render those secretarial services. Maybe for other clients, I can do that. So I think that distinction we'll have to keep.
Yeah. And then my another query is with reference to the role of EQCR, Engagement Quality Control Reviewer. And sometimes when we see the various audit softwares, there they say that that time and that date is stamped by the engagement team, then the engagement partner, and then also by the EQCR. So that means that even EQCR has also required to see each and each line by line compliance, because probably what I feel is that as an EQCR one has to see the overall things, whether yes things are complied with or not, but not that how things have been, each and every process has been executed. So there if you can comment something.
I agree with you, Bhupendra ji. I don't believe he has to go through. See, that is the job of the engagement partner. Maybe each person reporting, the manager reporting. In fact, there's a hierarchy from an article to a CA to a manager director and then to an engagement partner. So EQCR has to look at an overall, picture, not in individual queries of the article or of the manager or of the, this thing. So I agree with you. He did not have to do a line, point by point review of all the points. So what points are escalated? Points for discussion with the engagement partner, he may review because how he has been dealt with all the critical points for discussion. Basic queries, just to give an example, certain things, documents not there, later on found, observed. He need not go through the whole. He just has to look at a final summary which goes to the partners. These are the points for discussion. जो partners point बोलते हैं, वो that he has to review. How the partner has taken a decision.
Correct. So, Nilesh, with these evolving things, in fact, I am changing many processes in my firm for the purpose of audit documentation, and I'm sure that with your session as a keynote speaker today, my entire team will basically, if they were actually resisting to us, that's why we should have this type of documentation now. We'll now get an idea and we'll now.
भूपेंद्र जी एक मिनट और लूंगा मैं शेयर करूं मेरे यहाँ पे भी ये था जब भी मैं इंस्टीट्यूट में था तो आई वाज लुकिंग एट द डिफरेंट केसेस एंड ऑल तभी तो अभी NFRA आया नहीं था एंड आई वाज टेलिंग आवर टीम कि भाई आप ये डॉक्यूमेंटेशन पे थोड़ा ज्यादा ध्यान दो है पर इसको और इम्प्रूव करो तो तभी फीडबैक किया था सर हम ऑडिट करें या डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करें तो आप अपने यहाँ पे क्या अभी हम लोग चाबुक नहीं मारते कि करना ही है अपने क्या मोर डेमोक्रेटिक मोर पार्टिसिपेटिव जब से NFRA ऑर्डर आने लग गए हैं पहले ऑर्डर से ILFS के टाइम से ही बहुत ही जागरूकता आ गई है हमारे फर्म में मतलब ऑल दी पार्टनर्स एंड ऑल दी मैनेजर्स एंड ऑल So they have got that now concern vis-a-vis the NFRA. And what is happening is this process started some years back. We number one, based on the feedback, fellow CCH का जैसे हमने देखा, it was not very conducive. So we changed that 3 years back to inflow. Inflow का भी initial implementation was not. So अभी जैसे improvement होते जा रहे हैं. Now there is a huge buy-in and everybody is all on board. But it took time. For older firm it takes time. But we don't have a choice. I can only share with you. हमारे पास choice नहीं, करना ही पड़ेगा. मतलब अगर हम listed company कर रहे हैं, करना ही पड़ेगा, कोई choice नहीं है हमारे पास में.
And I remember, sir, in case of Satyam, even those who were the team members at articles level and manager level were also called for certain inquiries.
Yes, absolutely.
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 So you are equally part of that audit team if you are confirming anything so far as financial statements and reporting their own is concerned. So
only whatever job they had done and how they have reported, nothing. That's not. इनको डरा नहीं देते हैं कि आपको ग्रिलिंग करेंगे, आपका जो रोल था बताना है बस.
नहीं, we are there, sir. No, not an issue.
Yeah.
Yes. So I now give charge to Dhruv for taking a session in detail. You can share your screen. Select it, yes. स्क्रीन आ नहीं रहा है वैसे. बाहर एक बार चेक करो. स्क्रीन आ गया क्या? You just check it technically. So till they do the technical things properly. Is it okay now? नहीं, अभी नहीं आ रहा है. एक बार इसको वापस कर एक बार. एक बार इसको चेक कर फास्ट. तो नीलेश सर, जब हम ये कर रहे होते हैं तो आफ्टर ईच ऑफ द speaker's presentation we keep a quiz also, online quiz, where all students have to participate and accordingly their ranking is decided.
तो उसकी जगते रहेंगे, सो नहीं जाएंगे इसको.
Yes, sir. And then we award them prize also, so that they also attend the entire webinar. And you can see that 75 plus 20 students in this conference hall, even more than 20, I think. So around 95, around 100, you can say 100 students are attending this webinar.
Yeah, excellent. I think बहुत बढ़िया है.
ये यहाँ क्यों नहीं आ रहा है? Or you do it from some other laptop? Screen तो आ रहा है अभी. Now it is coming. So you can start now. आ रहा है. Yes. Yes.
My name is Dhruv Goyal, and
Voice अच्छा रहा.
so hello everyone. My name is Dhruv Goyal, and I, along with Ruchika and Prakesh, taking class on the topic NFRA orders, landing and pay forward to CA firms as our keynote speaker told us. So starting from the first slide, development introduction की बात करते हैं. So NFRA is an independent regulator that is set up on 1st of October 2018. Along with the section 132 of Companies Act 2013, and the incorporation, the inception of NFRA, NFRAs come out of the Satyam scandal that took happen in 2009, and similar to NFRA, we have PACOP in US, which is public board, and Financial Business Council in UK. And PACOP and FCR, they are 20 and 30-year-old, like overseeing authority in US and UK. But India does not have any audit quality overseeing authority independent of the Institute of Chartered Accountants earlier than NFRA. So there are functions and duties of NFRA. NFRA, basically, what does an NFRA do? So NFRA and auditing policies, accounting and auditing standards. Earlier NFRA, there was a board called NACAS, which is National Accounting and Companies Auditing Standards Body, which is advisory board only. मेन रोल ICI प्ले करता था उसमें. अभी NFRA के बाद से NFRA जो है वो लीडिंग रोल प्ले करता है अकाउंटिंग एंड ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स पे. के बाद में monitoring the compliance of with accounting standard, and the main purpose of NFRA is to oversee the quality of auditing service provided by the chartered accountants. So talking of companies and body corporate governed by authority. So firstly, all the listed companies, whether listed in stock exchange in India or outside India, they are covered under NFRA. Talking about unlisted public companies which have paid up share capital more than 500 crores or annual turnover of more than 1,000 crores, or outstanding loan, debenture and deposits of more than 5,500 crores as on 31st March of immediately preceding financial. And along with that, insurance companies, banking company, and any company which is set up under the statutory act, or any body corporate which is incorporated outside India. So talking about powers of NFRA, so
come back. Why you have skipped the other ones?
Or body corporate registered outside.
Okay, that.
So powers of NFRA. NFRA has the power to investigate, either suo motu, like on its own, and on federal government or any institution or any body like this RBI say reference मिला, ILN FSC case में RBI से reference मिला था. And looking into the matters of professional or other misconduct. Professional misconduct or other misconduct are prescribed under Chartered Accounting Act 1949, and there are two schedules basically. So schedule number 1 and schedule number 2. So talking about professional misconduct and other misconduct. And NFRA has the same powers as vested in the civil vested in civil code under CRPC Act 1908. Just like power to investigate, power to summon, power to sue. And talking about next, where a professional or other misconduct is true. So NFRA has the power to impose penalty. And in case of penalty amounts to minimum 5 times of fees received. And in case of firms, minimum 5 lakhs and maximum it can be 10 times of fees received. And along with imposing penalty, NFRA has the power to debarring the members or firm from like practicing like auditor or practicing auditing or internal audit engagement, and performing any valuation as referred under Section 247 of Companies Act 2013. Basically, section number 247 referred as a securities, shares or debentures valuation, etc. So there are two kind of forms which are required to be filed. सबसे पहले NFRA 1, which is required to be filed by the company, which on the appointment of auditor within 15 days from the appointment of auditor. इसके अलावा ADT बन भी जाता है appointment के केस में, जो Companies Act 2013 में बोला है. And another
ADT 1 तो हर कंपनी ऑडिट के लिए जाता है, और NFRA 1 जो है,
जो NFRA में covered है,
companies which are covered by that threshold or by whether it is listed company, banking company, insurance company, companies are required to file NFRA 1
within 15 days of appointment of auditor. And NFRA 2 is required to be filed by an auditor who is appointed as an auditor on or before 30th November. So, like auditor को Companies Act में तो ADT 4 फाइल करना होता है in case of resignation और in case of like जब आप 143 subsection 12 में सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को फ्रॉड रिपोर्ट करते हैं उस केस में. बट अलॉन्ग विद दैट NFRA 2 भी ऑडिटर को फाइल करना होता है, जिसमें बेसिक डिटेल होती है कंपनी, लाइक कंपनी का नाम, डायरेक्टर्स, उसके CIN नंबर वगैरह, आपके नेटवर्क जैसे SRBC, तो SRBC का नेटवर्क EY होगा, तो जैसे नेटवर्क की डिटेल आपको देनी होगी. एंड एडिशनली आपको इसमें ये दिखाना होता है कि ड्यूरिंग द पास्ट 3 years कि आपने कोई रेजिग्नेशन दिया है या फिर आपने कोई लाइक आप पहले से इंगेज थे या नहीं, फॉर द सेक ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंसी ऑफ ऑडिटर. सो कमिंग अप विद द audit quality review report. So basically what does an audit quality review report is? So NFRA used to pick up the cases. Quality of service is one of the function or duty we can say of NFRA. So in this they check the like how the audit is conducted, whether the audit is conducted in accordance with the standards of auditing or accounting standards or India's whatever it is, and whether it is in compliance with the laws and regulations. So सबसे पहले जो ILN FS के केस में AQR NFRA ने कवर करी थी, and just a quick brief of ILN FS case. So what the FS case is that the ILN FS ने like around 1500 crore का repayment, debt repayment था, उसमें default करा था SIDBI से. And after that RBI has conducted a special audit on the ILN FS, and from the reference by RBI, NFRA has imposed special audit or audit quality reports on the ILN FS. So the auditor of ILN FS was SRBC and company under the network of EY. So there are summary of important observations which the NFRA has made under his audit quality review report. So first of all, the first point is that the initial appointment of SRBC company was prima facie illegal and void. So initial appointment prima facie and illegal and void क्यों था? क्योंकि an auditor is supposed to be independent of the entity which is going to be audited by him. So independency requirement is the utmost and important to the auditor, and it also it has also been noted in SQC1 or SA200. Overall objective of independent auditor. This way, auditor has to maintain independence. Independence in two kinds: independency in appearance and independency of state mind. So, what they did, कि अभी सर ने जो mention करा section number 144, जिसमें 9 kinds of services mentioned है: accounting and bookkeeping, internal audit, and internal financial control, rendering, outsourced financing, and management consultancy services. So, इसका जो network था EY. So, EY is providing these 144 wali services to the ILNFS, one of the company of ILNFS. And beside this, EY providing these 144 wali services to the one of the companies of ILNFS, they accepted the audit of ILNFS. So basically, this is a breach of standard, SA200. So that's why they pointed the initial appointment was prima facie illegal and void. Next point is they failed to assess the risk of material misstatement. An auditor is required to assess the material misstatement before starting audit as per SA 315 and identifying and evaluating the internal control and entities environment. So an auditor has to take the risk averse approach, and they have to assess the risk of material misstatement in the financial statement before starting the audit. So what they did, they rely on the management's evaluation and assessments. They failed to assess the risk of material misstatement, and there was a no documentation of any kind of ROMM assessment in their audit file. The next point is they failed to evaluate the fair value of investment amounting to 12,320 crores. So basically what they did, they completely rely on management assessment and evaluation reports. They didn't even take the audit evidences of the investment, which later proved to be financially impaired. And the fourth point is the firm failed to notice the related party transaction. So 177, any related party transaction which is more than 10% of turnover an amount is required to be approved prior to engage that transaction by the audit committee. So वर्ड जो 177 में लिखा हुआ है वो है कि the related party transaction should be approved by audit committee, but the literal interpretation of the word is कि prior approval लेना है. But इस केस में क्या था कि approval post facto था, like transaction के. So this is a clear non-compliance with the section 177 of the Companies Act 2013, along with SA 550, which is for related party. And the next point is the audit firm failed to perform the audit procedure to mitigate the risk associated with sanctioning of loan amounting to 8,124 crore, ignore the potential cases of evergreening and rollover. So what does evergreening means? Evergreening का मतलब होता है कि जैसे अभी like I have lent someone, the loan comes to me NPA. तो मैं क्या करता हूँ कि at the balance sheet date उसको एक दूसरा लोन दे देता हूँ और वो जो दूसरा लोन दिया उससे वो पहले वाले को रीपे कर देगा. So basically it is a top up loan, or we can say it is a kind of teaming and lending. Teaming and lending में जो होता है कि आप एक अकाउंट का पैसा दूसरे अकाउंट में लगा रहे हैं. So this is evergreening of loan. The next point is the audit firm failed to evaluate the management assertion that related party transactions were conducted on terms equivalent to those prevailing in arm's length price. So again, that the related party transaction should be carried at arm's length price.
आसमान ना क्या डिस्कस चल रहा है यहाँ पे?
So arm length price, basically arm length price का मतलब होता है unbiased price. The next point is audit firm's EQCR partner failed to report the material misstatement known to him and did not exercise due diligence to obtain the sufficient information. यदि मैं बात misconduct matter, which is schedule number 2 Chartered Accountant Act 1949. So EQCR failed to report the material misstatement known to him. And the next point is audit firm did not determine the person comprising TCWG. As per SA 260, an auditor is required to determine the TCWG and communicate the significant matters arising during the audit to TCWG in a written form and in a form that enable the TCWG to understand the so they didn't even communicate to TCWG and they didn't even evaluate the person who comprising the TCWG. So next is NFRA circulars. So what does NFRA do? They do financial reporting review. तो उसमें वो लोग क्या करते हैं कि लाइक इंडस्ट्री वाइड क्या चीज लाइक स्टैंडर्ड को लेके या फिर किसी कंपनी से का कोई सेक्शन है या फिर कोई स्टैंडर्ड है उसको लेके क्या मिसकंसेप्शंस करे जा रहे हैं. तो अभी तक एनएफआरए ने 3 सर्कुलर दिए, हम तीनों को कवर कर रहे हैं. तो पहला सर्कुलर था इन केस ऑफ वायलेशन ऑफ इंडियन इंडेस. सो इसमें क्या था कि कंपनी ने लोन ले रखा एंड वो एनपीए हो गया. तो लाइक आप यदि मैं बात करूं बैंक्स के केस में, तो बैंक के केस में क्या होता है कि जो असेट एनपीए हो जाती है उस पर वो इंटरेस्ट इनकम रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करते एक्चुअल बेसिस पे. जब वो एनपीए रियलाइज होगा तब वो इस पे इंटरेस्ट इनकम रियलाइज वो करते हैं रिकॉग्नाइज. बट ऐसा लेंडर के केस में होता है, जो बोरोवर है उसके केस में तो नहीं होता. बोरोवर को तो इंटरेस्ट लायबिलिटी दिखानी होगी जब तक एज पर इंड एस 109 जब तक फाइनेंशियल लायबिलिटी इम्पेयर्ड नहीं हो जाती तब तक आप लायबिलिटी तो दिखाएंगे. जो कंपनी थी उसने फाइनेंशियल लाइक इंटरेस्ट लायबिलिटी को डिस्क्लोज नहीं करा. तो एनएफआरए ने यही सर्कुलर में दिया कि बोलते हैं कि आप फाइनेंशियल लायबिलिटी को तब तक नहीं हटाएंगे जब तक वो लाइक वो इम्पेयर्ड नहीं हो जाती, एक्सटिंग्विश नहीं हो जाती. तो ये इंडस्ट्री वाइड फॉलो करा जा रहा था. तो इसमें एनएफआरए ने एक सर्कुलर दिया. नेक्स्ट सर्कुलर जो था वो था इंडेस 115 को लेके. तो इसमें क्या था कि जो ट्रेड रिसीवल लाइक कई सारी कंपनीज की अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज में लिखा हुआ था कि अकाउंट रिकॉग्निशन एंड मेजरमेंट ऑफ रेवेन्यू वाज erroneously stated as fair value of consideration received or receivable. 115 इसका जो मीनिंग है वो है ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस, लाइक ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस ऑफ कंसिडरेशन रिसीव्ड और रिसीवेबल. एंड जो ट्रेड रिसीवेबल है, ट्रेड रिसीवेबल फाइनेंशियल एसेट है और फाइनेंशियल एसेट 109 इंडेस 109 में कवर होती है और इंडेस 109 फाइनेंशियल एसेट को फेयर वैल्यू पे रिकॉग्नाइज करवाता है. बट ट्रेड रिसीवेबल इज एन एक्सेप्शन टू दिस रूल. ट्रेड रिसीवेबल ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस पे इनिशियली रिकॉग्नाइज होता है, उसके बाद उसमें इम्पेयरमेंट होती है, ईसीएल अप्रोच होती है, लाइफ टाइम अप्रोच लो या फिर आप 12 मंथ्स ईसीएल अप्रोच लो. बट कई कंपनीज की अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज थी उसमें यही वर्ड लिखा हुआ था कि ट्रेड रिसीवेबल जो है वो भी फेयर वैल्यू पे रिकॉग्नाइज हो रहा है इनिशियली, व्हिच इज रॉन्ग एज पर इंडियस 115 वी टॉकिंग अबाउट. And the last circular is about auditor's responsibility in relation to fraud in the company, which is covered under SA 240. So generally एक misconception ये था कि in case of auditor resigned from an audit, so he is absolved from the responsibility to report any instances of fraud in the company. So like Supreme Court in this order versus Deloitte Hastings and Sales LLP. तो इसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला कि स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर्स आर मैंडेटरी. दिस इज अ मैंडेटरी ऑब्लिगेशन टू रिपोर्ट द फ्रॉड और सस्पेक्टेड फ्रॉड as far as we seen as in clause number 11 of CARO 2020. it said कि आपको फ्रॉड जो कि कंपनी में हुए हैं वो रिपोर्ट करने. सेक्शन 143 सबसेक्शन 12 ऑफ कंपनीज एक्ट 2030 जिसमें अमाउंट के बेसिस पे कि 1 करोड़ से अगर कोई फ्रॉड है तो अब आपको सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को रिपोर्ट करना है. एंड कंपनीज जो आपका ऑडिट को कवर करना होता है फ्रॉड को. तो दिस इज अ मिसकंसेप्शन कि ऑडिटर रेजिग्नेशन डज नॉट एब्सॉल्व द ऑडिटर of his responsibility to report the suspected fraud as mandated by the law. So this is the NFRA has highlighted some of the key duties of auditor. Auditor must be independent and professional at all the times in their approach, and an auditor should constantly monitor their clients' accounts and should from the client, which could be considered as erroneous or misleading. Like before accepting something from the management, we have to ensure completeness and accuracy of the data which we get from the management, or evaluate the integrity of management before accepting any engagement. auditor should inform their client in a timely manner about any changes in the scope of intention of audit, and an auditor should ensure that any change in accounting policy and procedure has been applied consistently in compliance with the relevant accounting standards. So that's my part is enough. Along with my refer to Ruchika for moving on.
Yeah, before Ruchika takes over, Nilesh, if you want to add or supplement something to our speaker.
No, nothing at this juncture. I just want to take leave now, Bhupendraji.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. Our entire team has certainly learned from your experience today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks. It was a pleasure to be there, and all the best to all the people who are listening for the exams in case they are articles. So all the best for your exams. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
You're in a very good firm. Take the maximum out of the practical training there. Thank you,
sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Yes. Quiz hai after this or लास्ट में करना है या वो क्या कर रहा है एक बार क्विज मास्टर ने बना दिया चलो अब दो क्विज एक साथ ले लेंगे
Good afternoon.
अच्छा लिंक आ गया ठीक है तो फिर स्टार्ट नहीं डिलीट कर दिया उसको क्या हुआ है हाँ तो बीच में एक क्विज करते हैं ना सिस्टम चेंज कर दिया थोड़ा सो क्विज को वो शेयर कर रहा है क्या आई थिंक हाँ दिव्यांश इज शेयरिंग द क्विज So 49 51
you.
हैं? नहीं, सेकंड स्पीकर के बाद करना। Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now we'll be beginning with some of the recent orders passed by NFRA. So first we'll understand what are the sections in an order. Executive summary, and then introduction and background of the client and what were the responsibilities the auditor had to follow and what he did not follow. And then there are lapses in the conduct of audit. What were the lapses that the auditor made? And then the article of charge of professional misconduct by the engagement partner. Professional misconduct जो कि engagement partner ने किया है या फिर कोई भी other misconduct जो कि engagement partner ने किया है, उस पे अपन as per Chartered Accountancy Rule 1949 as per Schedule 1 and 2 अपन उस पे charges जो लगाते हैं उसके बारे में इसमें आएगा. And then penalties and sections जो कि penalties लग रही है. अभी executive summary
ये NFRA के ऑर्डर का एक स्ट्रक्चर है. जनरली NFRA के ऑर्डर इसी स्ट्रक्चर में आ रहे हैं. पहले एग्जीक्यूटिव समरी आ रही है, फिर लैप्सेस क्या है वो इंट्रोडक्शन आ रहा है, फिर लैप्सेस आ रहे हैं. तो ये जब तुम देखोगे तो मतलब इसी तरीके का है. और इसने ये जो फॉर्मेट दिया ना, ये क्या बोलते हैं इसको, है फरमान. हाँ, तो ये NFRA का ऑर्डर एक चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट फर्म्स के लिए किसी फरमान से कम नहीं है. तो आई थिंक यही सोचते हुए इसने ये दिया होगा. सो Now let's go ahead so far as these observations of NFRA.
So executive summary में basically क्या होता है? Briefly, it introduces rule of NFRA. NFRA का क्या role है? Plus 132(4) में NFRA के पास क्या क्या powers है? उसके बाद ये बताता है कि auditor जो है उनकी एसेस से बाउंड था और अगर उनमें कोई भी वायलेशंस हुआ है, कोई भी प्रोफेशनल या अदर मिसकंडक्ट हुआ है, तो उसके बारे में एक्सप्लेन करता है एग्जीक्यूटिव समरी में. उसके बाद वो बताता है कि हाउ comes to know about violations के बारे में पता कैसे चला, किसी और से आया या NFRA को थ्रू तो पता चला, सेबी से आया या फिर MCA को किसी ने रिपोर्ट किया था अंडर सेक्शन 143(12) तो उससे आया. And then reasons for imposition of penalty and issuance of show cause notice. तो जो show cause notice issue किया था उसके बाद replies आए या नहीं आए, suo motu अगर कोई extension grant किया और जो extension grant हुआ उसके लिए कोई application लगाई auditor ने, तो उस सब के reasons और उसके बाद क्या penalty impose करी उसके बारे में आएगा इधर. And then declaration of auditor being guilty of professional misconduct, उसके लिए proper investigation होगी 132(4) में. And then auditor को personal hearing के chances भी दिए जाएंगे for their to present their case, and then they'll declare the auditor is if the auditor is guilty or non-guilty. So we'll start off with the first order that we are going to cover today. That is about the auditors of CMI Limited. Audit firm was Messrs. Krishna Neeraj and Associates, and the engagement partner was CA Krishna Kumar Neeraj. SEBI informed NFRA in the preliminary analysis that internal controls were weak in inventory management of CMI Limited, and it resulted in difference between the physical and the book stock. Books में physically stock आ रहा था, सेबी के अकॉर्डिंग वो डिफरेंट था और सेबी ने इसके बारे में NFRA को बताया, एंड देन NFRA प्रोसीडेड फर्दर with the action under section 132(4) जिसकी पावर्स उसके पास है, एंड देन कृष्णा नीरज को उसके लिए नोटिस भेजा गया in pursuant to information. And then audit files for the financial year 1920, 2021 and 21-22 were called upon, and the auditor failed to submit the files. Auditor को extension दिया NFRA ने suo motu, and then auditor again failed to submit the files up to the date of extension, and after the expiry the auditor submitted the files, but sufficient cause was there for NFRA to take action under section 132(4). Because of that action was taken against the auditor. So the grounds of show cause notice. Grounds क्या क्या थे show cause notice के? पहला है clause 5 part 1 schedule 2. Failure to disclose material fact known to them, of which not disclosure for the financial statement but disclosure was necessary. Basically कोई चीज, कोई material information, कोई material fact था जो कि auditor को पता था और उसका disclosure necessary था but कोई disclosure नहीं दिया. उसके बाद है clause 6 part 1 of schedule 2, that is failure to report material misstatement. Basically अगर कोई भी material misstatement था और वो पता था CA को तो वो report होना चाहिए था. And then clause 7 part 1 of schedule 2, failure to exercise due diligence and being grossly negligent. अगर कोई auditor during the course of audit due diligence exercise नहीं करता है या फिर वो grossly negligent है अपने conduct को लेके, अपनी professional duties को लेके, तो वो guilty है under clause 7. And then clause 8 part 1 of schedule 2, failure to obtain sufficient information. Basically information अपन ने हमेशा से सीखा है sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. That is the basic necessity of an audit, and अगर sufficient information ही नहीं लिए तो तुम audit opinion बना ही नहीं सकते. Because of that clause 8 में guilty हो जाएंगे. Then clause 9 part 1 of second schedule, that is failure to invite attention to material departure from generally accepted or procedures of audit. कुछ procedures है audit के जो कि generally सबने accept कर रखे हैं, and अगर उससे कोई departure हो रहा है audit में तो वो भी report होना चाहिए. Then lapses in audit. What were the lapses that were found? सबसे पहला था fail to report on non-recognition as liabilities of the interest accrued on loans classified as non-performing asset. That was a misstatement as per SA 200, जो कि overall अपने को objective बताता है. तो failure हो गया इस चीज का, and then fail to analyze going concern assumption. We have always studied that SA 570 is the most important essay. अगर किसी कंपनी का गोइंग कंसर्न ही नहीं है तो आगे तो कुछ एनालाइज करने को बचा ही नहीं. तो अगर वही एनालाइज करने को रह गया तो ऑफ कोर्स प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट हो गया. तो उसके लिए भी नफरा ने लैप्सेस डिटेक्ट किए कि डिक्लाइनिंग ट्रेंड था रेवेन्यू में, डिक्लाइनिंग प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स था, डिक्लाइनिंग नेटवर्थ थी, डिक्लाइनिंग बिग बुक वैल्यू पर शेयर था, एंड एज वेल एज नेगेटिव वर्किंग कैपिटल थी. एंड इट ऑल इंडिकेट्स टू गोइंग कंसर्न नॉट गोइंग एनीवेयर. And then they fail to perform physical verification, जो कि of course perform करना होता है. And then fail to demonstrate compliance with EQCR responsibilities. EQCR की जो responsibilities होती है वो demonstrate नहीं कर पाए, उससे compliances. And then fail to carry out external confirmation. हमेशा जो भी trade receivables होते हैं हम उन्हें external confirmations भेजते हैं along as well as banks को भेजते हैं for balance confirmation. वो भी नहीं भेजा. उसकी वजह से ऑडिट फर्म पे monetary penalty of 50 lakh was imposed, and on the auditor monetary penalty of 10 lakhs was imposed, and he was debarred from acting as auditor for audits as well as internal audits for 2 years. Moving forward, we'll be discussing the case of auditors of Vikas WSP. It is listed on Bombay Stock Exchange. The auditor was Messrs. S. Prakash Agarwal and Company, and audit firm was and engagement partner was C.A. Som Prakash Agarwal. इसमें क्या हुआ था कि during the financial year 1920, SEBI informed NFRA about it, and the case was the interest expense on the borrowings from the banks was not recognized, as well as पार्शियल रिकॉग्निशन हुआ था इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट का जो कि एनपीएस पे थी. तो उसकी वजह से और एज वेल एज SQC1 स्टैंडर्ड ऑन क्वालिटी कंट्रोल वो भी फॉलो नहीं हुआ था, तो उसके लिए भी ऑर्डर सेट आउट किया गया. देन NFRA took up investigation under section 132(4) as per its powers, and from the SEBI's information about overstatement of profit, क्योंकि उन्होंने कॉस्ट रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करी पार्शियली और उन्होंने इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस भी नहीं दिखाया, तो उसकी वजह से उनका ओवरस्टेटेड था प्रॉफिट. उसके लिए इन लोगों ने इन्वेस्टिगेशन टेकअप करी. देन ऑडिट फाइल और SQC1 की पॉलिसीज फर्म से मंगवाई. फर्म ने पार्शियली ऑडिट फाइल्स और मेन पॉइंट्स ऑफ SQC प्रेजेंट किए, तो उनको बाकी चीजों के लिए रिमाइंडर गया. दे अगेन फेल्ड एंड दे सॉट एन एक्सटेंशन. पिछले वाले केस में NFRA ने सुओ मोटो एक्सटेंशन दिया था. इधर एंगेजमेंट पार्टनर सॉट एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ 30 days, एंड नाउ द ऑडिटर said that some of the audit documents available are in hard copy form and are of poor quality, and their copies were blurred. Would require getting digitalized with the help of a specialist. Of course, that is not a good reason to give for not presenting the audit files in SQC1 policy. So again, they remind 29th March to submit the remaining files latest by 7th April. But the auditor submitted the audit files and the remaining audit files and SQC1 policy on 19th 4th. That is after the expiry of the time period given. And after that, he was found guilty of professional misconduct under section 132(4).
What is SQC1? क्या होता है? स्टैंडर्ड का नाम तो सबको होता है, एक साथ सबने आंसर दिया, और उसके अंदर क्या है ये किसी को नहीं पता है. ये जो हम ट्रेनिंग कर रहे हैं ये क्या है? It is execution of that standard on quality control. ये एक पार्ट है। उसके अलावा भी बहुत सारी चीजें हैं कि किसके साथ लीडरशिप जो है वो इंटरेस्ट है, किस तरीके से आप फॉर्म के अंदर ट्रेनिंग की बात कर रहे हैं, किस तरीके से आप ह्यूमन रिसोर्स को हायर कर रहे हैं या अपने साथ में ले रहे हैं, है ना, किस तरीके के आपके ऑडिट से रिलेटेड ओवरऑल चेकलिस्ट है, किस तरीके से आप इंडिपेंडेंस मेंटेन करते हैं। तो ये उस डॉक्यूमेंट की बात कर रहा है। तो उन्होंने क्या कहा, आप देखिए पीछे जो इन्होंने क्रोनोलॉजी बताई ना कि इतनी तारीख को तो इन्होंने नोटिस दिया, फिर उन्होंने कहा कि साहब इसकी लेजिबल कॉपी हमारे पास में नहीं है ना, हम इसको आपको डिजिटलाइज करके देते हैं। ये सब क्या है? अगर किसी फर्म के साथ में पॉलिसी है तो वो तो है ना, उसके अंदर ऐसे टाइम कहाँ लग रहा है? ऐसी राइटली सेड कि ये these were only excuses, these were not valid points. अगर फर्म की पॉलिसी है तो वो तो रिकॉर्ड पे होनी चाहिए उसमें। तो दैट मीन्स the auditors were just trying to seek time so that they can have some document to be placed before NFRA. ये सब करना है। तो बेसिकली एक फर्म की एज ए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट फर्म SQC1 requires that there has to be a policy, और वो पॉलिसी जो है उसके तहत ही सब लोगों को काम करना है। ये रिक्वायरमेंट जो है, एवरी फर्म शुड एक्चुअली comply with these requirements.
So moving forward, what were the lapses in the audit? There was no documentation of conclusion discussed among the members. Basically जो इंडेस 109 के लिए जो भी जजमेंट्स और कंक्लूजन बनाई थी मेंबर्स ने, उसके बारे में कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ही नहीं था, ट्रायल बैलेंस नहीं था एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर का, ना वेरिफिकेशन हुआ था इंटरेस्ट सर्टिफिकेट्स का, ना ही कंफर्मेशन भेजे थे बैंक्स को, कोई कम्युनिकेशन नहीं हुआ था विद द TCWG अंडर SA एज पर SA 260, और issues identified in respect of compliance with ethical requirements and how they were resolved. अगर कोई भी ethical compliance से issue आया और वो resolve हुआ, उसका कोई भी documentation present नहीं था, और plus nature, scope, timing और document करके चलते हैं, एक audit plan बना के चलते हैं, एक program set होता है, वो कुछ भी नहीं था, और डॉक्यूमेंट की कोई भी लेजर कॉपी अवेलेबल नहीं थी, एज वेल एज कुछ तो MRL इन्होंने जो लिए थे they were inconsistent with the values, plus MRL जो है they were in violation with SA 580. There was no explanation for non consideration of interest cost, जो partial cost consider नहीं की थी NPA accounts की, उसके लिए कोई भी explanation नहीं था MRLs में, और MRLs लेटर हेड पे ही नहीं थे। जो भी MRL अपन क्लाइंट से लेते हैं that should be on the letterhead of the client, but it was not on the name and designation जो थी अथॉरिटी की वो ट्रेसेबल ही नहीं थी, and as well as audit firm was charged with non-compliance of SA 220, that is also on quality of the audit, and SA 230 audit documentation, क्योंकि कोई डॉक्यूमेंट अवेलेबल ही नहीं था इसलिए ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन की कंप्लायंस नहीं हुई थी। So they were guilty of personal regulatory and legal requirements, and they were also guilty of EQCR as well as the schedules we talk about. In Schedule 2, Part 1, clauses 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Or in all the clauses, they were found guilty. And as per SQC 1 also, they were not complying with the quality standards, so they were guilty. What was the penalty imposed? Hereby, penalty of 50 lakhs was imposed on Messrs. Prakash Agarwal and Company. जो कंपनी थी, फर्म थी, उस पे 50 lakhs की पेनल्टी लगाई थी NFRA ने. So that will be moving forward with Billcare Limited, auditor of Billcare Limited case. Messrs. RL Rathi and Company were the audit firm, and the auditor was CA Ratan Lakshmi Narayan Rathi. So here the case was, the case is almost similar to the last case we discussed. In the last case also there was non-recognition of interest cost, and in this case also the same case was happening, and the engagement partner issued instead of issuing a modified opinion, he issued an unmodified opinion. the keynote speaker spoke about it, that issuing an unmodified opinion and then giving emphasis of matter paragraph is not enough. When we give emphasis of matter paragraph, it is about that something is there in the financial statements and we just want to point out to that. But basically, giving an unmodified opinion and giving our opinion in the emphasis of matter paragraph is not allowed. We have to give modified opinion if there is inconsistencies and no documentation or anything we find in the audit. So here also standards were not complied with. कारों में false जो reporting करी गई थी, as well as EQCR की responsibilities यहाँ पे भी comply नहीं करी गई थी. So the engagement partner was charged with failure to evaluate appropriateness of accounting policies. अपन जब भी किसी client list पे जाते हैं,
आप में सब में EQCR कौन है यहाँ पर? है कोई एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर? अभी यहाँ पे कौन बैठा है EQCR? EQCR को पता है कि नहीं है? पता है? यस, आप लोगों का EQCR है अभी, एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर. ये जो कहे ना वो बात अब आपको माननी है. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि साहब ये क्या बता रहे हो तुम, है ना? क्योंकि वो अगर बात उसकी नहीं मानी ना तो सीधा पता है कहाँ पे आती है उसकी बात. NFRA नहीं, पहले मेरे के में था, है ना? उसकी रिपोर्टिंग अगर आपने उसकी बात नहीं मानी तो मेरे पास आती है. तो यू नीड टू कंसीडर उसके पास कितनी पावर है ना? वो क्या है तेरा दूसरा दोस्त बाहर क्या कर रहा है? अच्छा, क्विज सुन रहा है वो ठीक है.
lapses in the audit. Basically अगर अपन कहीं पे भी जाते हैं तो we have to evaluate कौन से accounting policies हमारा client follow कर रहा है, और उसी के साथ failure हो गया था. इन्होंने evaluate ही नहीं किया कि कौन से accounting policies follow हो रहे हैं, and then as well as they did not get sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. उसके बिना opinion दे दिया इन्होंने, that too unmodified. And then कोई भी audit documentation file नहीं किया, as well as इन्होंने कारों में false reporting करी under clause 3 of Caro for the year 2015 and 16 about loans, advances and grants to related parties. इन्होंने जो necessary audit procedures थे वो भी perform नहीं किए, इन्होंने audit evidence नहीं लिए और unmodified opinion charge कर दिया, and they failed to appoint EQCR, and they did not submit the audit files to NFRA even after 2 reminders. इनको 2 reminders गए थे NFRA से, and even after that they did not submit their audit file.
तो आप जो ये ऑडिट फाइल अपन तैयार करने के लिए कहते हैं ना, तो कई बार पता चलता है कि साहब जिसको ऑडिट दिया हुआ था वो तो दूसरी जगह चला गया, है ना? तो ये ऑडिट फाइल बनाने का काम ऐसा नहीं है कि बहुत डिले करना है. ये विद इन टाइम 6 मंथ तो 60 डेज तो बहुत ज्यादा है. ये 5-7 दिन में काम कंप्लीट करने का है, और उसके लिए फिर आप जहां कहीं पे भी आपका ऑडिट कंप्लीट हो जाए, वहां ऐसा नहीं है कि फाइल कंप्लीट करते करते आप 10 बजे वहां जा रहे हो, 10:30 11 बजे जा रहे हो और 4:30 5 बजे निकल गए, तो उससे फाइल कंप्लीट नहीं होगी. फाइल तो विद इन 2 डेज कंप्लीट हो जानी चाहिए. It should not take more than that time. आपको लगता है कि यार अब तो ऑडिट तो हो गई, अब क्या है, we are relaxed. You are not relaxed till that file is completed. तो कई बार मैंने अभी देखा है, I have observed कि सब 15 दिन हो गए, फाइल ही कंप्लीट नहीं हुई. तो it should be completed within, जो भी ऑनलाइन है वो भी सुन ले, क्योंकि अभी आपके ऊपर और बड़ा चेक किस तरीके का आने वाला है कि जिधर ऑडिट बोर्ड मीटिंग हुई and within 3 to 4 days file must be there with the EQCR team. तो ये आपको एंश्योर करना है आगे जाके in this season itself. तो we need not to कि अपन 30 सितंबर के बाद में सारी फाइलें बाद में देख रहे हैं, जो भी उस वक्त ऑडिट होगी उनको. तो इट इज नॉट ए गुड प्रैक्टिस फॉर द फर्म. और आप देख लो, क्योंकि एक बार कोई फाइल कंप्लीट नहीं हुई और उसके बाद हम उसको कंप्लीट करने लग गए और थोड़ा सा भी टाइम लग गया तो पता चला कि टीम मेंबर तो कहीं और ही चला गया, तो उससे क्या होगा, जिस दिन NFRA कॉल करेगा ना उस दिन पता चला कि साहब पता नहीं अपन बस सर खुजाते रह जाएंगे क्या फाइल का है। एक्सटेंशन देने के बाद तो ये होगा ना, इन्होंने क्या बोला कि 2 बार डीवार हो गया फिर ये हो गया, तो वो उनके पास moment you do not reach to as and when someone call you, इसका मतलब कुछ तो गड़बड़ है। और जो ही आपने चीजें इमीडिएट दे दी कि साहब आइए NFRA बिल्कुल, यू आर मोस्ट वेलकम एंड यू प्रोवाइड द डिटेल्स इमीडिएटली, देन द फर्स्ट इंप्रेशन इज कि अरे यार ये तो बिल्कुल फाइल रेडी। ऐसे ही होता है ना, आपके पास भी आपने कोई काम किया है और आपने उसका आंसर इमीडिएटली दे दिया, मतलब एक इंप्रेशन चाहता ना कि नहीं यार, और आप इधर उधर मुंह देखने लगे एक दूसरे का, तो पता चल जाता है कि आपने कितना काम किया और कितना नहीं किया। यही होता है। तो कितनी बार एक दूसरे का मुंह देखा आपने जब किसी ने कोई इंक्वायरी की तो, है? चलो
He was found guilty under clause 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 of part 1 of second schedule, and penalty was imposed on the CA 3 lakhs,
पेनल्टी का तो छोड़,
and
जो
he
मेन
was
चीज है ना वो
debarred for 2 years.
मेन डीबार, सब में पेनल्टी है, सब में डीबार है। अमाउंट को अपने को क्या करना है, अपने को अपनी जेब से थोड़ी देना है। NFRA लगा दी और उसने दे दी, है ना, और न अपने को वहां जेल में रहना है न अपन डीबार हो रहे। तो ये दोनों तीनों पॉइंट छोड़ दो, मेन जो पॉइंट्स है ना वो डिस्कस करो।
The next case is about auditors of CA Industries Limited. The audit firm was Messrs. Anil Chauhan and Associates, and the engagement partner was CA Anil Chauhan. So the CB reported it to NFRA that non-compliance is there with the accounting standards and misreporting in the financial statements by the company and non-cooperation with the auditors, and purchase or sales inflated fee, non-disclosure था related party transactions का, that is violation with SA 550, and siphoned of funds through undisclosed related parties.
तो ये सब पॉइंट्स जितने भी ये बता रहे ना, ये आपके लिए क्लू है फॉर डूइंग द ऑडिट्स। इन्फ्लेटिंग परचेज एंड सेल्स, तो अभी आपका क्या है कि दिमाग वैसे ही चलना चाहिए कि यार कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं है इस केस में परचेज एंड सेल्स का इन्फ्लेशन तो नहीं। तो आपका ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन चेकलिस्ट वो एक अलग है, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ अप्रोच और व्हाट टाइप ऑफ ऑब्जर्वेशंस आर देयर, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ audit process you should carry out, है ना, this should be to find out all these things. तो आप अगर ये सब चीजों पे दिमाग लगाने लग गए तो ऑटोमेटिकली मेरा डॉक्यूमेंट हो जाएगा। चलिए, और अब जो भी आप करें, जो भी आप ऑडिट का काम करें, तो उसका कागज, उसकी समरी, वो सारी आपके किसी न किसी सीट में होनी चाहिए, which you can tell to the engagement partner, और which will be ultimately ये जो checklist सैम्पलिंग की या उसकी बना रहे हैं, तो उसका ये लोग आपको पूछ रहे हैं ना अभी कि इसका क्या जवाब है, इसका क्या जवाब है। कौन कौन है ऑडिट्स पे? सब लोग ऑडिट्स पे ही है।
Yes, sir.
तो आर दे नॉट आस्किंग? फोन करके क्यों पूछ रहे हैं, परेशान कर रहे हैं? नहीं कर रहे हैं। अभी तेरा नंबर भी आएगा। तो किसको कर रहे हैं? कोई नहीं आप में से है? इनमें से कोई नहीं है कि यहाँ पे, यार तू जानता ही नहीं है। ईमेल्स आते हैं ना, हाँ ईमेल्स आते हैं तो इसको पता नहीं चल रहा है। जब तक फोन पे नहीं बोलो तब तक ऐसा लगता है कि ठीक है? ईमेल्स को भी रिस्पॉन्ड करना होता है। सो ट्राई टू टेक दीज थिंग्स सीरियसली। अच्छा, इसको किसको बेनिफिट? आपको बेनिफिट नहीं है। मैंने देखा अभी वो बीच में इन्हीं टीम मेंबर्स में कि साहब हमें तो ऑडिट दे दीजिए। These were their observations. मैंने कहा तुम ऑडिट ही तो कर रहे हो, और कर क्या रहे हो? जो ऑडिट कर रहे हैं उनकी भी ऑडिट कर रहे हो। And wherever there are, various audit processes which are not performed, you are telling them to perform. So that is the audit. कुछ portion audit का वो लोग कर रहे हैं, कुछ portion as a quality control reviewer आप कर रहे हो या आप उनको करने के लिए कह रहे हो. So that's how wherever they point out कि आपको balance confirmations में इस तरीके से आपको इनको भेजना है, sampling ये करनी है, analytical procedure में ये सारी चीजें करनी है, and whatever program they give, that should be complied. तो अभी ये थोड़ा और धीरे-धीरे stringent होगा. इन लोगों की तो ट्रेनिंग अभी 2-4 महीने में चली जाएगी, खत्म हो जाएगी. लेकिन जो यहाँ बाकी सब लोग बैठे हैं, they have to learn it, genuinely. Yes.
Lapses in the audit, they fail to maintain audit files as per SA 230. They fail to submit the audit files to NFRA, and they prevented NFRA from exercising their function of overseeing the audit functions. क्योंकि उन्होंने अपनी नॉन मेंटेनेंस की रिस्पॉन्ड ही नहीं किया अपनी चीजों पे, तो NFRA अपनी ड्यूटीज एक्सरसाइज ही नहीं कर पाया. So they were found guilty under clause 7 part 1 of second schedule and clause 2 part 4 of first schedule and clause 2 part 3 of first schedule, and penalties were imposed and they were debarred for 10 years. Thank you.
Yeah. Quiz. आ गया?
See, guys, we are on the last leg of our presentation, and I want your undivided attention because जो मैं चीज तुम्हें बताने वाला हूँ ना, वो तुम्हारे सारे बेसिक्स को ब्रश कर देगा ऑडिट के, और तुम्हारे आगे पेपर के अंदर भी बहुत चीज काम आने वाली है इससे. सो जस्ट टेक इट, मतलब इसको थोड़ा सा लाइटली लोगे, लेकिन all the concepts that will be really helpful in your exam, so take it seriously, okay? Who's there? Check your paper. इसका जवाब होगा. See, जब तक presentation का चल रहा है, तब तक first point I want to ask you, why do you think I put the word infamous case of DHFL? The word infamous, because mostly whenever the scam happens, Harshad Mehta, and then you, जब तक presentation का So, see, first of all, before starting the case, we should know what was the basic thing in this. The case came into highlight on January 2019 when, just like Hindenburg case, latest one of Adani, another journalist website posted that they have found a bigger scam of, and it included an amount more than of 31,000 crore, in which directors have siphoned the money. Now, there will be many points which you will be juggling around. What is siphoning? What is about the 31,000 crore? And first of all, what is DHFL? So, first starting with DHFL. DHFL and the public money that we talk about is DHFL stand for Diwan Housing Finance Corporation Limited. And it was one of the largest finance companies at that time. Now it is at its lowest and it is going into liquidation. But at that point, it was listed both on NSE and BSE. Now, what were the claims of that post that they posted on their link was that they claimed that the team, the biggest banking scam, these were the highlights that I'm saying. Biggest banking scam was including more than 31,000 crore rupees. And in 2023, when the final verdict came of Supreme Court, 3,535 crore, exact amount. How they did that scam is really important. The money was routed through secured and unsecured loans. It was a financial company, so it is very easy for it to show it in the operating expense. Operating उनका काम ही है कि वो लोन देते हैं और इंटरेस्ट लेते हैं उसके ऊपर. तो उन्होंने क्या दिखाया? हमने सिक्योर्ड और इनसिक्योर्ड लोन दिए. किसको दिए थे? शेल कंपनीज को, जो कि सारी की सारी ओन थी डायरेक्टर्स के नाम पे. Now these shell companies then transferred that same amount to directly the company which was owned by director, and it was based in UK, which I will tell you afterwards. And this term that I am saying, पहले लोन देना, फिर उस अमाउंट को ट्रांसफर करना उस कंपनी के मेन उस कंपनी के अंदर जिसके अंदर की मैनेजमेंट जो है वो इंटरेस्टेड है, उसे क्या बोलते हैं? राउंड ट्रिपिंग. So round tripping was basically involved in this. Some facts that you should know and you should remember them. Last तक ये तुम्हारे काम आने वाले हैं. DHFL के ग्रुप के अंदर 250 branches, 250 branches and 3 wholly owned subsidiaries, which included associate and joint ventures. And this case that we are discussing, it involves 2 people. One was engagement partner, reviewer. they both were held guilty. Now, this was the basic news of that time, which spread the rumor around the finance corporation. As you can see, it told clearly that NFRA found it 2 people guilty and they debarred it for 10 years. They were debarred for 10 years from performing any of their duties. First, before talking about the 2 people, engagement partner और एक engagement quality control review, पहले आपको ये बताओ मेरे को कि who is an engagement partner? We see Kamlesh sir, Bhupendra sir, these are all engagement partners. Who is an engagement partner according to you? A person who is responsible for the audit, person who signs the audit, who oversees your work, आर्टिकल का सारा काम देखते हैं और देखते हैं कि सारा काम जो है ऐसे इसके साथ से हुआ. ये 3-4 मेन पॉइंट्स हैं जो एंगेजमेंट पार्टनर करता है. यू आर एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. आपके बेसिक्स स्ट्रांग है. दो बात है. So first is he is responsible overseeing all the entire audit engagement. वो सुपरवाइज करते हैं सारी ऑडिट प्रोसेसेस को और देखते हैं कि वो गाइडलाइंस के अकॉर्डिंग चल रही है नहीं चल रही. Then they see that quality is maintained in the audit work. That's why they also establish a connection between engagement quality control reviewer. They also take an engagement quality control reviewer in their firm. And at last, they must comply with NFRA rules and regulations. That is also their responsibility. Now, what were the major lapses that you will see, and they were done on the end of engagement partner? सबसे पहला major lapse ये था कि उनको सबसे पहले शो कॉज नोटिस आया था NFRA के थ्रू. NFRA ने उन्हें बोला था कि आपको हमें बताना है कि क्या आपने इसके अंदर लैप्स किए, क्योंकि सबसे पहले उनके पास जब न्यूज आई कि 31,000 से ज्यादा कंपनी का फ्रॉड हुआ है तो वो किससे पूछेगी? सबसे पहले ऑडिटर से पूछेगी उसका आंसर. तो उनसे उन्होंने पूछा कि जस्ट टेल अस योर फाइल्स, हम आपकी फाइल सबमिट करो और आपका क्या इंटेक है इसके ऊपर. सो फर्स्टली दे टेक मल्टीपल एक्सटेंशन कि सर हम आपको बाद में बताएंगे, आपको बाद में बताएंगे. एंड देन they only initiated that we should be given chance for hearing, and NFRA gave them the chance that you have the right to be heard. उस हियरिंग की चांस मिलने के बाद भी उन्होंने 2 बार इंटेक लिया कि हम बाद में बताएंगे एंड दैट फाइनली हमारे पास जितने पॉइंट्स हैं और हमें जितनी भी assumptions हमने आज तक ली है उनके बेसिस पे हम आपकी फर्म के ऊपर ये फाइनल इंटेक देते हैं और ये शो कॉज नोटिस के बाद डायरेक्ट हम ऑर्डर पास करते हैं. So these were the following major charges that were placed in the show cause notice that we will study step by step. First was related to branches, 250 branches, and you know what is the best part about that? They were all fake. सारी की सारी 250 branches के जितने ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स थे सबके सब illegally appointed. Illegally appointed. I will tell you what is the basic word of the illegally appointed after major intake when I will discuss about that. First, we are discussing about stat auditor of the main company. Why the stat auditor was taken held guilty on that कि branch auditors तो illegally appointed है तो फिर stat auditor ने बोला कि मेरे को क्यों आपने guilty इसके अंदर किया? Because ये responsibility होती है stat auditor की कि branch auditor से वो क्या लेता है, उसके books मंगवाता है, उससे बोलता है कि आपने branch office की आपने audit करी नहीं करी, किस तरीके से करी. तो इसके अंदर आपके ऐसे इफेक्ट नहीं हुए, बट इसके अंदर कंपनीज एक्ट के सेक्शंस इफेक्ट हुए. इसके अंदर बोला गया सबसे पहले कि देयर वाज नो एग्जिस्टेंस, कि आपने उनसे कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करी, आपने कोई ब्रांच ऑडिटर के साथ बातचीत करी, उसका कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन नहीं करा आपने. फिर उसके बाद आपने ये चीज भी आप प्रूव नहीं कर पाए कि आपने ऑडिट प्रोसीजर परफॉर्म किए हैं नहीं किए. तो दीज बोथ वर मेजर कंटेंशन ऑफ NFRA. देन व्हाट वर द वायलेशंस? सेक्शन 143(8), अगर इफ आई गो विद द कंपनीज एक्ट, ये बोलता है कि आपको when the company has a branch office at different locations, तो उसको वो ब्रांच ऑफिस की जो ऑडिट है या तो उसे अपने खुद के स्टैट ऑडिटर को देखनी पड़ेगी या फिर कोई और पर्सन जो कि कैपेबल है एक ऑडिटर बनने के लिए उसको देनी पड़ेगी. इन दिस केस उन्होंने जब शुरुआत के अंदर ही बोल दिया कि हमने ब्रांच ऑडिटर अपॉइंट किए तो ब्रांच ऑडिटर के ऊपर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी चली गई. पर उस सेक्शन 143(8) के अंदर ये भी देख पाए कि जो सारे ब्रांच ऑडिटर थे वो इलीगली अपॉइंटेड थे. सेकेंड पॉइंट वाज सेक्शन 128 दैट आई डिस्कस विद यू कि आपको मेंटेन करनी पड़ेगी बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट. तो ब्रांच ऑफिस के केस के अंदर ब्रांच ऑफिस के अंदर बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट मेंटेन करनी पड़ेगी एंड हेड ऑफिस के केस के अंदर आपको हेड ऑफिस के अंदर मेंटेन करनी पड़ेगी. और लास्ट होता था सेक्शन 143 के इन्होंने रिपोर्टिंग करी और कारों के अंदर जो रिपोर्टिंग करी बिकॉज DHFL जो थी वो DHFL वाज अ कंपनी व्हिच वाज हैविंग पेड अप शेयर कैपिटल मोर देन 500 crore एंड दैट्स व्हाई कारो वाज एप्लीकेबल ऑन दैट एंड दैट टाइम कारो 2016 वाज प्रेजेंट. सो कारो 2016 के अंदर जो रिपोर्टिंग करी गई थी वो भी गलत थी. So after discussing about audit of branches, अब हम आएंगे कि जब इनकी ब्रांचेस थी और मैंने आपको बताया था शुरुआत के अंदर दैट दे हैव जॉइंट वेंचर्स, उनकी सब्सिडरीज भी थी। तो अब इन सब के अंदर हमें क्या देखते हैं कि जब जॉइंट वेंचर्स और सब्सिडरी होती है तो इनका कंसोलिडेशन किया जाता है साल के एंड के अंदर। एंड एट दैट टाइम देयर इज नो डिस्कशन if anyone of you have read the audit book, there is no discussion of SA. Actually, there is a discussion of AS21. If a company is following accounting standard, if a company is following Ind AS, then Ind AS 110 and 103 of business combination both are applicable. तो इसके अंदर अगेन अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड का हम लिंक लेते हैं। इसके अंदर बताते हैं, सबसे पहले फैक्ट के अंदर बताया गया कि फरवरी 2017 के अंदर कंपनी ने एक होली ओन सब्सिडरी फॉर्म करी, एक होली ऑन सब्सिडरी फॉर्म करी। अब उसका देखना आप लिंकेज कैसे बैठेगा। एक होली ऑन सब्सिडरी फरवरी के अंदर फॉर्म करी उन्होंने, और उनके पास पहले से एक ऑलरेडी एक स्टेक था सब्सिडरी के अंदर। उसका उन्होंने स्टेक जितना भी था 51% वो ओन करते थे उस सब्सिडरी के अंदर। उसका जितना भी स्टेक उनका था वो उन्होंने सेल किसको कर दिया, सब्सिडरी को सेल कर दिया दूसरी वाली को। अगर हम मतलब एक बार के लिए फन फैक्ट बताता हूँ, अगर टैक्सेशन के अंदर आप इसको लिंकेज करोगे डायरेक्ट टैक्स के अंदर तो ये बताया गया अगर आपकी 100% सब्सिडरी होती है तो अगर आप उसे कोई भी कैपिटल एसेट ये कुछ ट्रांसफर करते हो, ट्रांजेक्शन 47 के अंदर ही बताया गया। तो डिस्पाइट डीआईएल भी, अब इसके अंदर कैच ये है कि चाहे डीआईएल 100% सब्सिडी था आपका, लेकिन डीएचएफएल ने ये दिखाया नहीं उसके अंदर कि वो 100% सब्सिडी था। तो ये सबसे बड़ा मेन ये पड़ता है कि अब इसके ऊपर ऑडिटर्स कैसे इनटेक देंगे। तो ऑडिटर्स ने इधर एक वर्ड है AS21 के अंदर, उसके साथ उन्होंने बोला कि AS21 के अंदर एक वर्ड बोलता है कि हम जब आगे की हम रिपोर्टिंग चेक करते हैं, आगे की हम रिपोर्टिंग चेक करते हैं तो हम ये देखते हैं कि हमारा उसके अंदर हम इन्वेस्टमेंट रखेंगे ही नहीं रखेंगे। AS21 के अंदर ये बोलते हैं, और अगर हम इन्वेस्टमेंट रखेंगे उसको दिखाते हैं। AS21 ये बोलता है, इंडिया के अंदर ऐसा कोई भी आपको रिलैक्सेशन नहीं मिलता। AS21 बोलता है कि अगर हम लिक्विडेशन नहीं कर रहे उस कंपनी के अंदर जिसके अंदर अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे हैं, तब हम उसे क्या दिखाएंगे, अपनी सब्सिडी दिखाएंगे, वरना हम नहीं दिखाएंगे। तो ऑडिटर्स ने बोला कि हमारा जो था, मतलब मैनेजमेंट ने हमें बोला कि हम इसे लिक्विडेट करने वाले हैं इन नियर फ्यूचर, इसलिए हमने उसे AS21 के अंदर परव्यू के अंदर नहीं आया। वो हमारे हिसाब से वो कंसोलिडेट नहीं होना चाहिए था क्योंकि मैनेजमेंट ने ऐसे बोला। सेकंड पॉइंट उन्होंने बोला कि जो कंट्रोल था वो भी जो सब्सिडरी इन्होंने फॉर्म करी थी फरवरी के अंदर जिनको इन्होंने स्टेक बेचा, उसके अंदर जो कंट्रोल था वो भी DHFL के पास नहीं था। अब DHFL के पास कैसे नहीं था, इसके अंदर ही बोला गया कि आप ये देख रहे हैं कि अकाउंटिंग के अंदर उन्होंने 100% स्टेक है, आप लीगल फॉर्म देखिए, BC लीगल फॉर्म सब्सटेंस ओवर फॉर्म, यू नो, दैट्स व्हाई उन्होंने बोला कि अकाउंटिंग के अंदर आप एस्पेक्ट देख रहे हैं कि अकाउंटिंग के हिसाब से ये इसके कंट्रोल होना चाहिए, लेकिन लीगली कंट्रोल नहीं था क्योंकि लीगली ट्राई पार्टी एग्रीमेंट था। ट्राई पार्टी यानी 3 पार्टी इसके अंदर इन्वॉल्व थी, और 3 पार्टी इसके अंदर इन्वॉल्व जो थी वो DHFL, DIL और DPLI थी। DPLI जिसके स्टेक बेचे थे और DIL जो अभी फॉर्म करी इन्होंने करेंटली। अब इन्होंने बोला कि हम जो इसका कंसेंट लेते ना बेचने का, जो हमने स्टेक बेचे वो हम किससे लेते, WGC से। अगर WGC आप बोले वाधवान ग्लोबल कैपिटल, ये यूके की अंदर कंपनी जिसके अंदर राउंड ट्रिपिंग करी गई थी। जो स्टार्टिंग में मैंने आपको बताया कि सारे के सारा पैसा कहाँ गया, राउंड ट्रिपिंग हो गई, वो उनकी कंपनी में गया था यूके की। वाधवान जो थे, वाधवान वर द डायरेक्टर्स, 2 ब्रदर्स, दे वर द डायरेक्टर। उनकी कंपनी से आपको कंसेंट लेनी पड़ती और फिर उसके बाद हम स्टेक बेचते। तो देखा जाए तो हमारे पास कंट्रोल सिर्फ बुक्स के अंदर था, हमारे पास लीगली का सेकंड पॉइंट था। और थर्ड पॉइंट उनका ये था कि ऐसे 500 जो आप पढ़ते हैं कि हम उसके अंदर मैनेजमेंट एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन लेते हैं। उन्होंने बोला हमने मैनेजमेंट ने इसके ऊपर एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन लिया था और हमने उसके ऊपर रिलाई कर लिया। तो ये ऑडिटर्स की इनटेक थे इसके ऊपर। बट व्हाट वुड NFRA से उन्होंने बोला कि आपने जो नियर फ्यूचर है ना उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन ही गलत किया है एएस के अंदर। जो एएस के अंदर आप बोल रहे हो कि नियर फ्यूचर के अंदर इसे डाइल्यूट कर देंगे, उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन ही गलत किया है। जो आपने एग्रीमेंट के अंदर लिख रखा है वो लिख रखा है कि आप आफ्टर 100 मंथ्स, मतलब 100 मंथ्स इज इक्वल्स टू 8 इयर्स, आप 8 इयर्स के बाद उसका डाइल्यूशन करोगे। एंड जनरली जो देखा गया है प्रैक्टिस के अंदर वो नियर फ्यूचर को 12 मंथ्स लिया जाता है। सो दे बोथ आर कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी। तो पहला आपने AS21 को ही गलत इंप्लाई किया और इधर गलत फॉलो किया। सेकंड उन्होंने बोला कि 20 एज पर AS21 3 पॉइंट्स हमें देखने पड़ते हैं। अगर 100% शेयर कैपिटल है तो उसको सब्सिडी माना जाता है और उसको उसके अंदर दिखाना पड़ता है कंसोलिडेट करके। सेकंड जो आपने फाइनेंशियल दिखाए कि आपने WGC से, वाधवान के ग्रुप से आप उनसे एग्रीमेंट लोगे। तो अगर मैं थोड़ा सा बताऊंगा, ये बहुत बड़ा एक केस लॉ था इसके अंदर। वाधवान ने क्या किया था, जो उनको जो कंसेंट चाहिए था, उस कंसेंट के बदले उन्होंने, मतलब उनके पास जो ये एक लीगल राइट था एग्रीमेंट, उसके बदले उन्होंने DHFL से ही लोन लिए थे 1900 करोड़ का। उन्होंने बोला कि यह हम एग्रीमेंट को कोलेटरल रख रहे हैं और आप हमें 1900 करोड़ का लोन दे दो। तो टेक्निकली वाधवान के पास कंट्रोल नहीं था, DHFL के पास ही कंट्रोल आ गया था, क्योंकि बिकॉज जैसे हम पढ़ते कि एक तरीके से जब तक के लिए डीम डोनर बैंक माना जाता है, तो इस केस के अंदर भी आप डीम डोनर भी माने गए और अकाउंटिंग के अंदर भी आप गए, तो आप इधर भी आप गलत हो। थर्ड पॉइंट इसके अंदर बोला कि जो आप ऐसे 500 के अंदर बोल रहे हैं कंप्लायंस का, तो आपने उस ऐसे 500 के कंप्लायंस को आपने ऐसे 230 जो ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करते हैं, इधर आपने कहीं पर भी नहीं बता रखा कि आपने कोई मैनेजमेंट के एक्सपर्ट की ओपिनियन लिए, ना आपने मैनेजमेंट के एक्सपर्ट की ओपिनियन लिए तो उसके बारे में रेफरेंस दिया है, ना उस पैरा के बारे में कुछ रेफरेंस दिया है, तो ऐसे 500 इज नॉट रेलेवेंट है जो आप उधर एक कंटेंशन दे रहे हो। तो फाइनली क्या बोला गया कि आपने ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू नहीं दिया इसके ऊपर। आपको जब पहला पता था और साफ साफ बुक्स के अंदर दिख रहा था ये चीज कि ये तो गलत ही है, उसके बाद भी आपने ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू नहीं दिया और आपने अनमॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन वायलेशन, a major violation that I consider. Then we see the next point, that is consideration of law and regulation. कौन से ऐसे इसके अंदर आता है? 250. तो ऐसे 250 जो बोलता है वो क्या बोलता है कि आपको लॉ एंड रेगुलेशन का भी ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा जो आप ऑडिट कर रहे हो, कि उसके ऊपर कौन से लॉ एंड रेगुलेशन लग रहे हैं, कौन से पर्व्यू के अंदर आ रहा है और उनका मटेरियलिटी क्या है, मटेरियल है या नहीं है, उनके हिसाब से उसने अलग अलग ट्रीटमेंट बताए गए। जो हम पढ़ेंगे कंसिडरेशन ऑफ लॉ एंड रेगुलेशन पे, उसके अंदर ये देखेंगे कि DHFL ने बताया, फैक्ट ये था कि DHFL जो था वो किसके रेगुलेटेड था, हाउसिंग बैंक। जैसे DHFL बहुत सारी रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटी के अंडर भी था, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया BSE NSE के अंदर लिस्टेड है, तो SEBI के अंदर आ गया, फिर उसके बाद फाइनेंस बैंक था तो वो RBI के अंदर भी आएगा, पर वो हाउसिंग बैंक था, हाउसिंग बैंक के अंदर था तो NHB के अंदर भी आया। और ये फैक्ट इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि NHB ने रिपोर्ट 2016-17 के अंदर दी थी फ्लैग करके दैट यू हैव अ मेजर लैप्स अकॉर्डिंग टू अस। और 2016-17 में जो मेजर लैप्स की थी तो मतलब वो लॉ के साथ फॉलो नहीं कर रहे थे, लॉ को फॉलो नहीं कर रहे थे उनके। तो इसके अंदर कंटेंशन क्या दिया ऑडिटर ने साफ मना कर दिया चार्जेस के। ऑडिटर ने कंप्लीटली डिनाई कर दिया जो चार्जेस उसके ऊपर लगाए थे मुकरा ने। उसने बोला कि 250 जो है, ऐसे 250 बोलता है कि ऑडिटर लिमिटेड है सिर्फ और सिर्फ उन फैक्ट्स को देखने के लिए जिनका मटेरियल इंपैक्ट हो रहा है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के ऊपर, और उनका डिस्क्लोजर देना जरूरी है। और हमारे हिसाब से इसका मटेरियल इंपैक्ट क्या दिखाना पड़ेगा कि इसका मटेरियल इंपैक्ट हो रहा है। सो बिफोर दैट मैं आपको एक बात बता देता हूँ NHB क्या है। NHB वाज अ नेशनल हाउसिंग बैंक, एक अपेक्स रेगुलेटरी बॉडी थी जो कि हाउसिंग फाइनेंस के अंदर इंडिया के अंदर अभी प्रेजेंट है। गिवन केस के अंदर क्या क्या चीजें थी जो उसने अपनी रिपोर्ट में बताई जो उन्होंने वायलेट करी। पहला कि एक MIS रिपोर्ट उन्हें बनानी पड़ती है, जैसे हम जाते हैं ऑडिट में, कभी बैंक में गए कहीं भी गए तो हम MIS रिपोर्ट मांगते हैं मैनेजमेंट से। तो उन्होंने बोला था कि उस समय पे 16-17 के अंदर ALM नाम से एक MIS रिपोर्ट आई थी, उन्होंने बोला था आपको इससे कंप्लाई करना पड़ेगा, और उन्होंने उसको 3 साल तक कंप्लाई नहीं किया, उसके बाद भी उन्होंने फर्दर कंप्लाई नहीं किया था। तो उसके ऊपर उन्होंने बोला था कि आपने इसके साथ कंप्लाई नहीं किया, जिसकी वजह से बहुत सारी चीजें ओवरलुक हो जाएगी, आपके फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल भी कमजोर हो जाएगी। ऑफ ओवरड्यू इंटरेस्ट, NPAs के केस के अंदर क्या होता है कि हम जो इंटरेस्ट ओवरड्यू होता रहता है वो NPA के अकाउंट के अंदर ही हम क्या कर देते हैं, कैपिटलाइज कर देते हैं। बट DHFL ने क्या किया, चाहे वो अकाउंट NPA हो या नहीं हो, उन्होंने दोनों ही केस के अंदर उस ओवरड्यू अमाउंट को कैपिटलाइज कर दिया, जो कि अलाउड नहीं है NHB के साथ। एंड लास्ट वो बोलते हैं कि नेट ओन फंड्स जो आपके खुद के फंड्स हैं उनको एक सर्टेन रेशियो के अंदर आपको मेंटेन करना होगा, वो उन्होंने रेशियो वायलेट किया था। तो ये 3 मेन इनके हिसाब से, रिपोर्ट के हिसाब से, NHB की रिपोर्ट के हिसाब से DHFL ने वायलेशन किए। अब नफरा ने इसके ऊपर क्या इंटेक दिया, उन्होंने बोला ऐसे 250 जो है वो बोलता है कंसिडर करो आप लॉज एंड रेगुलेशन जब भी आप ऑडिट परफॉर्म कर रहे हो। बेसिक उन्होंने सबसे पहले ये बताया, फिर उन्होंने बताया कि जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आइडेंटिफाई करने की कि कौन सा एरिया मटेरियल नहीं है, कौन सा लॉ मटेरियल है और उसका इम्पैक्ट जो है वो मटेरियल है वो, और कौन सा एरिया जो मटेरियल नहीं है, वो दोनों के दोनों किसके ऊपर है, ऑडिटर के ऊपर है। ऑडिटर हैज टू डिसाइड कि कौन सा एरिया मटेरियल है और कौन सा एरिया मटेरियल नहीं है। बट in this case the area was material and you have failed to understand that this area was material because there is a point कि documentation जो था engagement partner का वो वायलेशन में था। और लास्ट में मैंने जो आपको पॉइंट बताया नेट ओन फंड्स, This is related to capital to be maintained. Is a main factor in deciding that it is the firm is going to be a going concern or not. मतलब अगर आपने कम कैपिटल मेंटेन कर रखा है तो आपके ऊपर इन फ्यूचर कोई रेगुलेशन या फिर कोई पेनल्टी, हैवी पेनल्टी चार्ज हो सकती है, और ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आपको लिक्विडेशन के अंदर डाल दें, एनसीएलटी के अंदर डाल दें. तो ये जो फैक्टर था वो अपने आप में बहुत मेन फैक्टर था इस चीज को डिसाइड करने में कि आपकी जो आगे जाके फर्म है या आपकी जो आगे जाके कंपनी है वो कोई कंसर्न नहीं रहेगी, तो अपने आप में मटेरियल हो गया. सो यू फेल टू कंप्लाई विद दैट. It was final. They said that auditor's report is resulted to be a baseless report because वो उन्होंने मेन चीजें जो थी ऐसे 250 then again भी ऑडिट ऑफ ब्रांच की ब्रांच 50 ब्रांचेस थी, उन सब के ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स इलीगल थे. तो ये सारे के सारे मैटर्स कंक्लूड करके उन्होंने बोला कि आपकी बेसलेस रिपोर्ट बना रहे हो आप, क्योंकि बहुत सारी चीजें जो है वो आप तो अवॉइड कर रहे हो या फिर आप बोल रहे हो कि हमारे हिसाब से ये होना चाहिए, ये नहीं होना चाहिए. मतलब आप आपका इंटरप्रिटेशन जो है ऐसे इसका दैट इज टोटली रॉन्ग. देन इंटरनल फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल्स जो है कि आपकी जो इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स हैं आपकी फर्म के अंदर, कंट्रोल्स की बात चलती है तो बेसिक चीज क्या आ जाता है कि सबसे पहले ऑडिटर जाता है, वो क्या चेक करता है कि आइडेंटिफाई करता है फर्म को और उसके इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स को 350. फिर उसके बाद वो देखेगा वो जो उसने आइडेंटिफाई किया उन्हें डॉक्यूमेंट करेगा, ऐसे 230 हमेशा आएगा, ऐसे 230. एंड देन वो ऑडिट एविडेंस ऑब्टेन करेगा, ऐसे 500. तो इसके अंदर इन तीनों केसेस के अंदर कंप्लाई नहीं हुआ था, इन तीनों ऐसे इसका कंप्लायंस नहीं हुआ था. तो नफरा का कंटेंशन क्या था कि आप पहली बात तो आप आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पाएगी डेफिशिएंसी की इंटरनल कंट्रोल के अंदर. आपके हिसाब से तो कंपनी वाज डूइंग वेरी गुड एट दैट्स व्हाई यू गिव द अनमॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन, वरना आप अनमॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन बट यू गिव अनमॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन. सेकंड, नो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन वाज देयर. इसके लिए एसओपीस था कि कोई एसओपी एक कंपनी जो कि एनएससी बीएससी लेवल पे है, जो जिसके शेयर्स जो है वो पहले से लिस्टेड है, प्लस उसका 500 करोड़ से ज्यादा कैपिटल है, वो वन ऑफ द टॉप फाइनेंस कॉर्पोरेशन के अंदर जानी जाती है. तो उसका जो एसओपीस जो होने चाहिए वो होनी चाहिए, इंटैक्ट होनी चाहिए. बट इसके अंदर तो उनके एसओपीस जो थे वो डॉक्यूमेंटेड ही नहीं थे. मतलब जब नफरा ने देखा तो उनके एसओपीस ही मेंटेन नहीं कर रहे थे डीएचएफएल. तो हाउ द सिस्टम इज वर्किंग, सिस्टम इज. एंड नफरा ने एक और चीज फाइंड करी, जो हम वर्किंग पेपर्स ऑडिटर्स बनाते हैं, वर्किंग पेपर्स मंगवाते हैं नफरा दैट यू हैव डन द वर्क एप्रोप्रिएटली और नॉट. जब उन्होंने वर्किंग पेपर मंगवाया तो उनके अंदर उन्होंने देखा कि 10 केसेस उन्होंने चेक किए थे सैंपल बेसिस पे. उन 10 में से भी 4 केसेस के अंदर लोन्स जो थे वो सैंक्शन लेटर से पहले ही सैंक्शन हो गए, डिसबर्स हो गए. सैंक्शन मतलब एक प्रोसेस होता है बैंकिंग का, पहले सैंक्शन लेटर आता है फिर उसके बाद आप लोन डिसबर्स करते हो. इन केसेस के अंदर क्या हुआ कि लेटर तो आया नहीं, मतलब मैनेजमेंट जो हाई मैनेजमेंट होता है उन्होंने बोला नहीं यस ओके आपने पहले लोन डिसबर्स कर दिया. ऑफ अगेन इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स. Then there was no branch related controls documented. वही ब्रांच ऑडिट वाला जो था कि कोई ब्रांच से रिलेटेड कोई भी डॉक्यूमेंट आपने मेंटेन नहीं कर रखे थे, वो भी फाइनेंशियल इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स के अंदर आ जाएगा आपका. फिर एंगेजमेंट पार्टनर जो था उन्होंने भी ढंग से ऑडिट प्रोसीजर इस तरीके से परफॉर्म नहीं किया था कि वो मिनिमाइज कर सके रोमन. व्हेन वी स्टडी अबाउट एसए 315 तो हम ये बोलते हैं कि रोमन को मिनिमाइज करते हैं हम ताकि हम रीजनेबल एश्योरेंस दे सकें. फिर उसके बाद हम डीआर सीआर और कंट्रोल रिस्क तीनों के बारे में पढ़ते हैं. मिनिमाइज नहीं कर पाए आप लोगों को. क्यों? बिकॉज देयर वाज मैनेजमेंट ओवरराइड ऑफ कंट्रोल्स दैट वाज क्लियरली विजिबल देयर एंड यू वरंट एबल टू रिपोर्ट दैट कि आपको मैनेजमेंट ने ओवरराइड किया कंट्रोल को, आप नहीं बता पाए. एंड इलीगली अपॉइंटेड ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स के बारे में भी आपने मेंशन नहीं किया अपनी रिपोर्ट में. सो अगेन there's 3 violations of SAs that we see 500 350 and 230 documentation. कोई कंसर्न जो मैंने आपको शुरुआत में बोला था ऐसे 250 के अंदर इन्होंने वायलेशन किया है कि हम कैपिटल मेंटेन नहीं कर पा रहे. अब जो कैपिटल मेंटेन नहीं कर पा रहे आप अपने ऑपरेशन को कैसे वर्क करोगे वो भी आप समझा नहीं पाओगे उन्हें. तो ऐसे फिर 570 क्या बोलता था कि वेयर ऑडिटर्स फेल टू एडिक्वेटली एड्रेस गोइंग कंसर्न केसेस. द कंटेंशन जो ऑडिटर ने इसके ऊपर इंटेक दिया अपना नफरा को डिक्लाइन करके उनका शोकेस नोटिस के ऊपर दैट उन्होंने सारे चार्जेस डिनाई किए. उन्होंने पहले बोला कि देयर वर नो इवेंट्स, उनके हिसाब से कोई भी ऐसे इवेंट या सिचुएशन अकर नहीं हुए थे जो कि ये बताएं कि नियर फ्यूचर के अंदर डीएचएफएल वाज नॉट एबल टू मीट इट्स लायबिलिटी. एक आप इसके अंदर पढ़ोगे तो उसके अंदर बताया जाता है कि जब आप फ्यूचर के अंदर आप नियर फ्यूचर के अंदर अगर लायबिलिटी को मीट नहीं कर पाते तो गोइंग कंसर्न वायलेट हो जाता है. तो पहला पॉइंट उन्होंने ये बोला कि हम देखिए अब कोई ऐसा इवेंट दिखा ही नहीं है मैं स्पीच के अंदर तो इसके हिसाब से तो अगर ऐसा इवेंट दिखा ही नहीं तो मैनेजमेंट को फोरकास्ट बनाने की जरूरत नहीं थी 12 मंथ्स का, और फोरकास्ट बनाने की जरूरत नहीं थी तो हमें वेरीफाई करने की जरूरत नहीं थी। इस तरीके से उन्होंने अपना कंटेंशन दिया। तो इस कंटेंशन के ऊपर नफरा ने क्या बोला? नफरा said that when management didn't perform preliminary assessment. Preliminary assessment is जब वो management directly says you that yes our books are complete और वो आपको MRS देता है कि हमें going concern follow करने की जरूरत नहीं है। तो and at that point ऐसे 700 also says and the regulations also says कि आपको बातों पर विश्वास नहीं करना है, आपको मैनेजमेंट से क्या लेना है, आपको उनसे डिस्कस करना है, उनसे रीजंस लेना है, उनकी रीजनिंग करनी है और फिर उसको डॉक्यूमेंट करके आपको दिखाना है कि हाँ मैनेजमेंट इज सेइंग राइट इन आर व्यू। इसलिए इसे ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू बोला जाता है। पर कंटेंशन कहते हैं एनएफआरए के आपने उनसे बात ही नहीं करी, आपने उनसे पूछा ही नहीं, उन्होंने जो बोला आपने उसे हाथों हाथ एक्सेप्ट कर लिया। सेकंड essay 570 also says and it is a base of every essay that you should remain alert during performing any audit procedure in your audit firm, जिसे हम ड्यू के ये सारी चीजें टर्म्स के अंदर बोले जाते हैं। So they said that auditor was not alert when they were performing their audit procedure because there were events जो कि significant doubt cause कर रहे थे कि entity will not be able to perform and it will not be able to meet its liability in near future. डॉक्यूमेंट अब इन चीजों के अंदर मेन पॉइंट क्या था? इनके अंदर मेन पॉइंट ये था कि जब भी ऑडिटर ने कोई कंटेंशन रेज किया वो उसको ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन प्रूफ नहीं दे पाया। The everything you will see in DHFL is having a primary structure जो था उसको बिगड़ा हुआ इसलिए था because they didn't have proper audit documentation. And there was also a negative factor that was indicated in the balance sheet. The net current liability was showing in that balance sheet. Net current liability means current liability minus current asset. That was showing in the negative factor. मतलब वो liability की side में आ रही थी. So it was also a negative factor. So at least engagement partner should have told, but it can be met. But he didn't show that also. Now basic कुछ clauses है जिनकी वजह जो इन सब की summary बनता है. In future you will learn that CA Act 1949 states some professional misconduct and it will be a part of your curriculum also. So of that there are two schedules that were already discussed. First schedule and second schedule. Second schedule mentions those misconducts that are you can say of high priority. मतलब अगर इनसे अगर आपने इनको अगर आपने फॉलो नहीं किया चैलेंज जो होते हैं वो ज्यादा अमाउंट के होते हैं और ज्यादा समय के लिए भी होते हैं। तो सेकंड शेड्यूल वाज वायलेटेड है जिसके अंदर फर्स्ट क्लॉज ये बोलता था कि आप डिस्क्लोजर नहीं कर पाए मटेरियल फैक्ट्स। आपको पता था मटेरियल फैक्ट्स पर आप डिस्क्लोजर नहीं कर पाए। हमने जैसे स्टार्टिंग से अभी तक पढ़ा कि इनको दिख रहा था साफ साफ गोइंग कंसर्न भी दिख रहा था लेकिन आप उसको मेंशन नहीं कर पाए। सेकंड क्लॉज 6 वो बोलता है कि आप ड्यू डिलिजेंस फॉलो नहीं कर पाए। जो आपकी प्रोफेशनल ड्यू केयर ड्यू डिलिजेंस आपको जिस तरीके से ऑडिट करनी चाहिए वो भी आप नहीं कर पाए। कि आप सफिशिएंट इन्फॉर्मेशन ऑब्टेन नहीं कर पाए क्योंकि आपके पास ना तो ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन था ना आपने रिस्क देखे ना आप आइडेंटिफाई कर पाए। तो उस केस के अंदर भी आप ऐसे ही जो सफिशिएंट एप्रोप्रिएट ऑडिट एविडेंस था वो भी ऑब्टेन नहीं कर पाए। तो दीस थ्री चार्जेस वर देयर एंड फाइनली क्लॉज 9 जो साथ साथ में आ जाता है इट सेज दैट यू वर फेलिंग टू इनवाइट अटेंशन टू मटेरियल फैक्ट्स। जो मटेरियल फैक्ट्स जो थे इस केस से रिलेटेड वो आप बता ही नहीं पाए। तो आप बता ही नहीं पाए उसके केस के अंदर क्या हुआ कि fraud was there in the company. पेनल्टी वाज इम्पोज्ड 5 लाख की पेनल्टी लगी थी और डिबार कर दिया उन्हें 5 इयर्स तक के लिए 10 इयर्स तक के लिए एंगेजमेंट पार्टनर फीस। सेकंड पॉइंट जो था वो एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर का था। पर एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर का पॉइंट से पहले एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यू के बारे में हमने देखा था। अब जब एंगेजमेंट पार्टनर के बारे में आपने बोला कि एंगेजमेंट पार्टनर इज रिस्पांसिबल फॉर द ऑडिट, he performs the audit, he oversees the audit, everything he does. Then why engagement quality control review? Why we need the engagement quality control review? Can you before seeing this?
Maintaining the quality of the audit and whether the audit has been performed as per the SOPs of the proper documentation is there.
You are correct. Actually, क्या है कि EQCR की responsibility is he is a cross checker. Engagement partner is doing everything. वो SOPs देखेगा, सब देखेगा, because he is the primary person to see everything. But engagement quality control reviewer will be there and he will see his work. उसकी फाइल पढ़ेगा, उसकी टीम ने जो डिसीजन लिए वो देखेगा, सिग्निफिकेंट डिसीजन यू विल सी, और उसके बाद वो ये बताएगा कि आपने कुछ चीजें जो छोड़ नॉलेज के अंदर, वो उसको बताएगा और वो दोनों डिस्कशन करने के बाद एक फाइनल पॉइंट पे आएंगे. दिस इज द वर्क ऑफ एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर. NFRA also says that without a credible audit, investors, creditors, and other users of financial statements would be handicapped. Because before investing in any stock, when you are like you are a qualified person, you always invest in a stock after seeing its financial statements only. दूसरे लोगों के वो कम्युनिकेशन के साथ वो करते हैं, लेकिन मेन जो पर्सन जो होता है वो जो स्टेटमेंट्स के ऊपर रिलाई करके करता है. And if if the auditor is not credible, then these four जो सारे के सारे people linked है, stakeholders, creditors, investors, they will be all handicapped. They will be blindly trusting on a financial statement that is completely not true and fair. So basic point you have to remember about the engagement quality control review is, first, he is independent of engagement partner. He has his own mind. मतलब वो उसकी सुनता नहीं है. वो बताएगा engagement quality control review. If there is any उनके बीच में कोई भी एक पॉइंट पे जाकर एक कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन होता है तो वो थर्ड पर्सन के पास जाते हैं. तो ऐसा नहीं होता कि लो पुटिंग के ऊपर एक एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यू होगा. देन ही इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू रिव्यू. ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन को रिव्यू करने की जिम्मेदारी उसकी भी है. अब हमने देखा ऊपर के केसेस के अंदर कि ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन नहीं था, इसलिए इस केस के अंदर एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर को भी पकड़ा गया. एंड थर्ड, ही ऑल्सो इवेल्युएट्स द कंक्लूजन ऑफ रिपोर्ट. अब ऑडिटर रिपोर्ट में मैंने जो आपको बताया कि अनमॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन दी थी उन्होंने, जबकि उन्हें अनमॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन नहीं देनी चाहिए. तो इस केस के अंदर भी एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर वाज रिस्पॉन्सिबल. Again, you can see 220 and SQC1 both says about the main responsibilities and discussion about engagement quality control reviewer. That's why they both are attracted. And SA 230 audit documentation is also attracted in this case. A short glimpse of that major lapses were, first, engagement quality control reviewer only has a one pager in this case. A DHFL case के अंदर एक engagement quality control reviewer ने बोला एक पेज लेकर सर को कि सर मेरे पास यही चीज है, मैंने यही चीज करी. Do you think it is reasonable thing? Even we also don't maintain one pager. We also have a complete file of our clients. So उसने बोला कि मेरे पास सिर्फ एक डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है and that has only find questions, nothing else I did in the audit. No, you can see how at the first point only he was held responsible for that. Second, uncorrected and corrected misstatements. There is a point about that कि आपको uncorrected और corrected misstatements जो कि engagement partner ने find out किए उनको आपको cross check करना पड़ता है. But what engagement quality control reviewer said, he just put it tick 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 tick. Yes, I checked. Yeah, I checked. But when they engagement team said we didn't see anything, we didn't see it, then how engagement quality control reviewer can check it? Engagement team का जो पेपर होता है वही तो प्राइमरी डॉक्यूमेंट होता है आपके लिए, आप उसी को चेक कर दो. अब एंगेजमेंट टीम ने बोल दिया मैंने डॉक्यूमेंट में ये चीज लिखी नहीं और एंगेजमेंट क्वालिटी कंट्रोल रिव्यूअर ने बोल दिया कि भाई मैंने चेक कर लिया. हाउ यू कैन चेक इट व्हेन इट इज नॉट मेंशन्ड इन द डॉक्यूमेंट? Second, they said that engagement quality control reviewer has mentioned that communication was done with PCWG. Engagement team said that no, we didn't do any communication. Then again, they said that quality review on the part of quality control review हार्ड लेवल, जो आपसे एक्सपेक्ट किया जाता है कि आप इस लेवल पे करोगे, वो हार्ड लेवल पे नहीं था. NFRA ने जो चार्जेस किए ड्यू डिलिजेंस फेल कर गए आप, एक ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस आपसे काम करते समय आप डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं कर पाए एंड रिपोर्ट नहीं कर पाए जो मटेरियल डिपार्चर हुए थे ऐसे एंड यू फेल्ड टू डेमोन्स्ट्रेट द अचीवमेंट ऑफ ओवरऑल ऑब्जेक्टिव. ओवरऑल ऑब्जेक्टिव जो था ऑडिट का वो अचीव नहीं हुआ और आप ये बता भी नहीं पाए कि हम ऐसे 200 से कंप्लाई नहीं कर रहे. सो EQCR was what EQCR counted. He said that my work is to check QC पर. What he was saying that SA 230 doesn't apply to me. It applies only to the auditor. Is it correct statement or not? I don't think it is a correct statement. So again, there in this case, professional misconduct के अंदर सबसे पहले वो due diligence नहीं कर पाए तो clause 7 के अंदर attract हो गया. Then he failed to obtain evidence, sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So clause 8 के अंदर आ गया. And clause 9 के अंदर वो क्यों आया? क्योंकि उसको पता था material departure हुआ है, लेकिन वो उसको mention नहीं कर पाया. तो clause 9 के अंदर भी वो follow कर दिया. And finally, penalty was imposed on it also. But he was debarred for 5 years from doing any audit, from involving in any work, internal audit or any bank audit. Then there will be questions that will be still in your mind. पहला क्वेश्चन क्या होगा कि जो मैंने शुरुआत के अंदर आपको बताया था ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स, उनका क्या होगा? 250 ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स इलीगल थे, उनका क्या होगा सर? उनको छोड़ दिया गया. इलीगल ब्रांच ऑडिटर आपने बोला सर, तो इलीगल ब्रांच ऑडिटर का मतलब क्या है? एंड थर्ड, शो कॉज नोटिस जो था वो सिर्फ स्टैट ऑडिटर्स को ही मिला या फिर ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स को भी मिला? So there is a short tips about that, but just a short note on that. They say why so serious? I will say why so curious because I know. So first is branch auditors. Story of branch auditors and illegal branch auditor. So story of branch auditor was that कि branch auditor जो है वो फॉल करता है सेक्शन 143 और सेक्शन 139. अगर आप दोनों को साथ में पढ़ो तो सेक्शन 143 बोलता है कि आपको ब्रांच ऑडिटर रखना पड़ेगा, या तो स्टैट ऑडिटर को रखो या फिर आपको जो लगता है उस पर्सन को रखो. सेक्शन 139 बोलता है कि आपको अपॉइंटमेंट जब करना है ऑडिटर का तो आपको कुछ रेगुलेशंस है और कुछ रूल्स है, सेट ऑफ रूल्स, उनको फॉलो करना पड़ेगा. तो उन दोनों चीजों को साथ में पढ़. देन DHFL में केस के अंदर क्या हुआ? सबसे पहले अपॉइंटमेंट जो था लेटर का वो एक अनऑथराइज पर्सन ने साइन कर दिया. तो पहले ही केस के अंदर जब अनऑथराइज सिग्नेचर था तो पहले ही केस के अंदर वो नल एंड वॉइड हो गया. इसमें जितने भी ब्रांच ऑडिटर जिनको अपॉइंट किया गया था वो सारे के सारे इलीगल कहलाए गए. सेकंड, अपॉइंटमेंट जो था वो सेक्शन के हिसाब से नहीं था. जो सेक्शन 143(8) और सेक्शन 139 बोलता है उनके रेगुलेशंस को बिल्कुल ही कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट कर रहा था. एंड थर्ड, जो अपॉइंटमेंट हुआ था उसके अंदर उन्होंने किसकी कंसल्टेशन ली थी? स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर की, जिनको उसका पहले ही नोटिस चलता है. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंड टू दीस ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स? तो ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स के अंदर नफरा ने ये बोला कि नफरा ने कुल मिला के 33 शो कॉज नोटिस इशू किए. तो मैंने एक बार के अंदर समराइज कर दिया है बहुत शॉर्ट के अंदर. 33 शो कॉज नोटिस इशू किए इन 122 ब्रांचेस के अंदर. और वो 122 ब्रांचेस कौन सी थी? वो 122 ब्रांचेस वो थी जिन केस के अंदर ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स जो थे वो स्टैट ऑडिटर्स के कहने पे लगाए गए थे. मतलब स्टैट ऑडिटर ने बोला था कि इनको लगाओ तो इनको ब्रांच ऑडिटर लगाया गया. और बाकी की जो बची ब्रांचेस उन केसेस के अंदर जब नफरा ने इन डेप्थ रिसर्च किया तो उनको पता चला कि ये भी जो थे वो भी फॉलो नहीं कर रहे थे प्रोविजंस को. तो उन केस के अंदर भी नफरा ने एक अलग से डिसिप्लिनरी ऑर्डर किया. शो कॉज नोटिस नहीं, डायरेक्ट उनको ऑर्डर पास कर दिया कि आप गलत हुए हो, या तो आप हट जाओ या फिर हम आपके ऊपर पेनलाइज कर देंगे. तो टोटल के अंदर नन ऑफ द 250 ब्रांच ऑडिटर्स वर अपॉइंटेड एज पर कंपनी सेक्ट. नाउ देयर वर मेनी कंटेंशंस. जैसे मैं आपको बताया था कि सारे एससीसीस के अंदर कवर्ड हो जाएंगे. यू कैन सी 210 सबसे पहले ऑडिट, सबसे पहले टर्म्स ऑफ ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट ही ऑडिटर ने देखा ही नहीं कि भाई अनऑथराइज सिग्नेचर है तो आप इधर ऐसे 210 वायलेट कर दिए. ऐसे 230 ऑडिटर, जब हमने स्टैट ऑडिटर पढ़ा था, स्टैट ऑडिटर ने क्या बोला था कि स्टैट ऑडिटर ने ब्रांच ऑडिटर से कोई भी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन नहीं लिया, मतलब ब्रांच ऑडिटर ने कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन बनाया भी नहीं होगा. तो ऐसे 230 इज आल्सो कंक्लूडेड है. ऐसे 300 प्लानिंग एंड ऑडिट ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स. इट वाज प्रूव दैट कोई भी ओवरऑल ऑडिट स्ट्रेटेजी, कोई ऑडिट प्लान वाज नॉट मेंटेन, एंड वो ऑडिट प्रोसीजर कैसे करना है उसका उन्होंने बेसिक्स ही नहीं किया था. तो एसएस 300 वाज वायलेटेड आल्सो. 315 वो रोमम नहीं देख पाए, रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल स्टेटमेंट नहीं देख पाए, तो 315 वायलेट हो गया. वो मटेरियलिटी मेंशन नहीं कर पाए कि मटेरियलिटी कैसे. आप देखोगे ऐसे 320, अगर 320 को आप लिंक करोगे ऐसे 500 सीरीज के साथ जिसके अंदर ऑडिट एविडेंस आता है, एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स आता है, तो उनके साथ आप लिंक करोगे तो इसके अंदर बताया गया कि इन्होंने सैंपलिंग जो थी वो करेक्टली नहीं करी थी. सैंपलिंग के अंदर इन्हें स्ट्रेटिफाइड सैंपलिंग और वो फॉलो करनी चाहिए, जबकि इन्होंने डायरेक्टली उनकी एक रैंडम बेसिस पे 10 नंबर्स ली और उनके अंदर से, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया था, 4 गलत निकल गए थे. वैसे ही इसके अंदर भी इन्होंने 10-15 लिए और उनको चेक कर लिया. तो सैंपलिंग वाज, तो सैंपलिंग गलत थी तो मटेरियलिटी आपने जो निकाली होगी वो भी गलत. ऐसे 330 वाज देयर. ऑडिटर का जो रिस्पांस था रिस्क के लेकर वो गलत था. ऐसे 450 दैट मिसस्टेटमेंट जो आइडेंटिफाई हुए थे ऑडिट के समय, उनको इवेल्युएट ही नहीं किया था आपने ढंग से। ऑडिट एविडेंस और एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर जो हमने 300 सीरीज के साथ पढ़ा, वो इसके अंदर आ गया, वायलेशन हो गया। और फाइनली आपने ओपिनियन फॉर्म जो करी, अनमोडिफाइड ओपिनियन, वो भी आपकी गलत थी, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर अगर हम सारे के सारे एसेस लगाने लगे तो ये पूरी की पूरी क्वालिफाइड के अंदर जाएगी, और हो सकता है कि ये एडवर्ड्स के अंदर भी चली जाए। तो I just told you all the short glimpse of this, which I mentioned now. The objective नहीं था, responsibility नहीं थी, and 230 and then 700 penalty was imposed. Again, 1 lakh was the common penalty that was imposed on everyone. There was a difference 16 cases के अंदर और बाकी के केसेस के अंदर उन्हें 1 ईयर के लिए डिवाइड कर दिया, ये आप परफॉर्म नहीं कर सकते। That's on my side.
Now, quiz can be there.